Hello and welcome back to the Tetracast. This is RPG Site's weekly podcast where we get the site staff together to talk about our favorite genre of video games. My name's Brian Vitale, and we're back to the usual crew here today. Let me go through everyone who's with me. We have George Foster.
Hello, hello.
Welcome back, George. We missed you last week. We have Josh Torres.
Happy to announce that I'm voicing Mario.
We have Adam Vitale.
Hello.
James Galizio.
I'm doing all right.
And Chow Min Woo.
How's it going?
So last week on the podcast, we kind of talked about how we were in like a holding pattern waiting for TGS, which hasn't happened yet, obviously. It's happening at the end of the month into early October. And then, of course, Nintendo just walks in and says, hold everything. Nintendo Direct, here you go. Looking at the slate of the things to talk about today, the vast majority of it has filtered out of the Nintendo Direct that was just a couple days ago. That's going to be the plurality of what we talk about, all the RPG related or adjacent announcements, some of the shadow drops that came up during that thing we'll be talking about, some of the things that maybe we were expecting after it was announced but we didn't end up seeing. We do have a few games that people have been playing that we'll be talking about, but this might be a little bit of a lesser focus this week for the podcast, just because a lot of people have been playing things that are under embargo, or we'll discuss later when it comes to talking about what came out of the Nintendo Direct. So I'm looking at what people have listed for games they've been playing, and the one that is out of the list for this week that is most interesting to me is actually what George has listed here. George, welcome back.
Yes.
So you get to talk about,
Hello.
Is it Kena or Kina, or do we know?
I actually, I had to Google
Bridge
it
of
like
Spirits.
5 seconds ago. I was like, I'm going to Google how to pronounce it because otherwise I'll be saying it's Kina the whole time. It is Kenna.
So Kena Bridge of Spirits is like a game that we at one time considered covering because it sort of had that Zelda adventure-esque, close enough sort of feel. But at some point we decided not to. So I'm interested to hear your impressions on what you've played of Kena.
So I've only really played like about 2 or 3 hours of it, and I'm kind of convinced you could definitely get away with covering it here. It is very adventure-y.
Define that for me. What does that mean?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to like. So basically, it's very. I don't know. It's hard to describe like what an adventure-y sense is, but you play as Kenna, who I can now pronounce the name of, and she is a spirit guide. And essentially, what she does, she goes to this sort of foresty area. I'm assuming there's going to be more depth to it. I'm assuming that maybe there's a reason she's there.
Yeah, to back up a little bit, this is by an indie studio, like their first game, and they're like it's by Ember Labs, I think, and this is their first game. And like this was like first unveiled at I think at the PS5 reveal. Yeah, like last year, like that. It caught the eyes of a lot of people because like the visuals were like Pixar-esque quality and whatnot. And what like kind of like the basic thing is. I don't know. It's like people have talked about this game in the vernacular. It's like a PS2 game, but in a good way, because it's kind of like sort of that. I don't know if it's like stage based, but it seems like kind of going back to those sort of not B game, but like kind of like not quite AAA game. It's like maybe A or double A, whatever the fuck that means. Yeah.
Well, yeah, like A vernacular aside, it's not stage based because there's collectibles and there's sort of open areas, but they're very like they're contained. They're very contained.
Okay.
And it's done in an act manner. So like I was saying, where she's in the forest, you first start off, you're helping one spirit basically move on to the afterlife, and then after that, I'm now in a new area where I'm helping another spirit move on to the afterlife. I believe, and I think that's how it's going to go, where you just keep running into these people and helping them.
Have you ever played Overlord? Way back when?
Oh my god, Overlord! Jeez, that's a blast.
That's what it reminds me of. Like you're kind of recruiting like these little like I gotta call them minions here, like to help. Do they help you out in any sort of way? Like it seems like you're amassing them, like an army, like following you.
That is how it seemed at first to me as well. So they're called the Rot, and they're like these really cute little, like Adam would love them. They're like these cute little like tiny. They're like Puffles. If you ever played Club Penguin, that's again.
Oh yeah.
And you collect them. They're more of a collectible than anything else. So you get them. They do help you out, but it's not like Overlord where it's like I have 100 of these, so they'll help me lift heavier stuff. Whether you have 15 or whether you have 30, they'll be doing the same thing. It just lets you upgrade yourself a bit more. So if you have more, you can unlock like a dash attack sort of thing. That's what they're used for. And they're also just really cute, and you can like customize them. But it's not like that in any sense. It's much more. It is just an adventure game, really. And as Brian has challenged me with, that's kind of hard to ascertain like what that is. But it is literally just you're just exploring areas, you're doing puzzles, you're unlocking abilities, you're following like a basic storyline.
Is there like some sort of skill tree in this game? Like, and
a very small one, very small one.
Like when I think of adventure games, I think of kind of first of all, everyone's going to have like there's no dictionary that declares what an adventure game is. What I think of progression through like tools, like getting like a hook shot in Zelda or something in Darksiders that allows you to climb walls or whatever. And a lot of times you see these in RPGs as well, like these games where it's an RPG, but then also Adol will get similar sort of new abilities as he goes through the
is there damage numbers?
Abilities. Yes, are there damage floaters? Oh, not an RPG.
Okay, there are health bars above the enemy's head. Does that quantify? Can we do that? No.
We can't tell. We can't tell. Yeah, we can't tell you yes or no. We're not the ones who dictate that in the end.
I will say the Zelda comparison keeps coming up, and it does feel very Zelda-y. And I hate to use that like. I know we always get in trouble for calling stuff very Breath of the Wild, but it is just very whimsical and like basic, but it's so full of life and charming, and you're literally just exploring areas. It's really relaxing.
It just reminds me of old games, like like I think of like things like Mark of Cree, for example.
I remember I saw somebody compare it to Star Fox Adventures.
Okay,
which is also kind of a
I can see that.
It's that clear PS2, obviously GameCube era Zelda-ish adventure game. So I did see someone specifically compare it to that, though.
One adventure game that I always kind of think of is there's an old game for the original Xbox called Azuric, which has like an elemental system where you have like fire, water, earth, but then you can combine like water and earth to make like mud element, or fire and air to make like steam or stuff like that. And then just like the way that you unlock different abilities. So here, let's wrap this back around to Kenna. Like after you do like the first spirit guide, do you unlock like a new capability for the character or a new movement skill or whatever? So
for the first time you get a bow, which at first I was like, oh, it's just a new combat thing, but it's not. Like it turns into a movement thing. It turns into kind of a hook shot if you shoot it at like specific flowers. And then the second time you get like a bomb ability that can make like anti-gravity platforms. So I guess now I'm thinking about it, now that we've mentioned that, I'm like, yeah, that's a very adventure element. It's really good so far though. I wouldn't say it amazes me in any capacity besides the graphics. Like the graphics are maybe one of the best looking games I've seen. Just I love the style. It is very CG animated film from like 2019. Like does that sound like an insult that's meant in like
actually no
a very specific year?
Not 2018, not 17. But I was gonna say that the little allies you get almost look like Toothless from How I Trained or the Dragon show.
Yeah,
How I Trained My Dragon, whatever it's called.
How to Train Your Dragon. Yeah,
that one.
You were close. I think the comparison I've seen before is Beyond Good and Evil. It reminds me of that quite a lot.
Okay,
and having to think about it for a second, the first adventure game that comes to my head, and also probably what I would closely compare it to, is Rayman 2, which is kind of a weird comparison, but Rayman 2 is quite like stage based, and I guess it's like Rayman Revolution, which was the PS2 sort of like remaster that added in like hub worlds. That is what it reminds me of. And I'm the person in the world who'll feel that way. But
it's kind of weird how like we've looped back around though, and sort of like it, like these types of games now are like weirdly refreshing because we don't see much of them anymore, because of like a lot of game studios have opted for like that third-person cinematic adventure.
Well, look what Ubisoft's turning Beyond Good and Evil into with Beyond Good and Evil 2, which I guess still exists, which is like this giant open world mega game thing that might come out at some point. Yeah, super game.
So like we've been spending a lot of time talking about like these game comparisons, which is sort of weird because it's like we should let Kenna stand on its own, what type of game it is, rather than comparing it to other things. But the fact that you don't get these sorts of games very often anymore, it sort of makes those comparisons like interesting in a way, just because we haven't seen a game like this in a while. So
I love the idea. In fact, it should be standard that every game stands on its own 2 feet. Even feats, even like a sequel, I think you should judge on its own merits, not necessarily basing on what it improves or what it does on its own. But the problem with Kenna is that it doesn't. It's not a problem, but it doesn't do anything that original. Like, it is just sort of like an amalgamation with really nice graphics, and I don't think that's a problem.
Yeah, it's one of those. It feels like one of those. It's like if like one of these games came back and with like modern tech, what would it look like? Sort of case study.
Yeah, exactly. So it's nothing. I would recommend it. I would definitely recommend it, and I'm really enjoying what I've played. But like, it wouldn't scratch the bottom of the top 10 list. Like, it would be a very. That's a good game.
Okay, how about this? Think about like that. Maybe early PS3 360 or PS2 GameCube era. Like these types of like kind of B to double A type of games. Which one of those would you like to see with like modern graphics again? That nothing has changed about the gameplay. You just want to see it. The like really pretty graphics like Kenna.
See, this is my jammy. Like, this sort of game is exactly what I love. Like, if we're going beyond the RPG space,
and you can't say Psychonauts 2 because that's what
Rayman 2.
Rayman 2.
Rayman 2.
All right,
definitely.
Anyone else have a darling?
I have an answer. It's gonna sound like a meme, but it's genuinely not. I would actually really like to have an adventure game of this sort set in the Donkey Kong universe, like basically Donkey Kong 64 only done well.
I can see that.
I would totally play that.
That's a really interesting answer. This is weird of me. I don't know. Like, mine is a tie between like a little PS2 game called Bujingai, The Forsaken City. That's like, it's very infamous for it's like kind of like a Wuxia type of title, starring Gak as the main character. Essentially, he's the main actor, and Chaos Legion, which is by Capcom, and that was like a very dark gothic sort of like edgelord type of game where you command like these summons. Sort of like a chess game almost for levels of like these are like direct answers to like the obstacles that you face. Like, those are like the 2 games that come to mind. Like, you know what? A lot of people didn't like these, but man, I adored these.
Oh, there are so many good examples though. And as I say that, like, planning to segue into like, oh, this would be another good one, I completely forgot what game I was on about. This is the problem. There's so many of them that it's kind of hard to focus down. Like, Rayman 2 is easy to choose because like I love Rayman to death. But if you ask me, oh, okay, Mr. Cocky Guy, Kenna's like every other game, is it? Name 5. I would kind of struggle. I'd have to really think about it. So maybe ignore everything I've said. I'm an idiot. That's the message.
All I want to say is that the one like 3D platformer I was kind of hoping to finally get was announced this week, which is the Kirby 3D platformer, which isn't on the news.
Yes.
So I just wanted to mention it because it's like, hell yeah, I've been wanting a 3D Kirby game ever since I managed to get a taste of it with Kirby Air Ride back on the GameCube.
It's been a while since we had like a full-fledged Kirby game, like relative to how often Kirby games normally come out.
Yeah,
wasn't there
it's been like 2 whole years.
The recent one that came out was like some like updated free-to-play like side-scroller battle thing that like was whatever.
It was pretty good.
Like the one take I do like about the recent Kirby, I forget the name of the game already, Kirby something Discovery or whatever, was for Pro ZD. I was like, it's reassuring to know that Kirby will outlast all of human civilization because it's like a post-apocalyptic type of thing. Like, yeah, you're right.
I feel like
just to be clear, like Kirby Star Allies came out in 2018 on Switch. It was more side scroller-ish, and like that was a proper Kirby game. But like 3 whole years without like a mainline Kirby game is a long time relative to this series. So, but since then we have gotten Super Kirby Clash and Kirby Fighters 2 and Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn on 3DS. Even was that
that came out?
No, that was
after.
Yes.
Huh.
I didn't believe it.
Oh, I'm really happy that Sakurai can finally find happiness after the Smash DLC. So good on the guy.
Any other final thoughts on Kena Bridge of Spirits?
I'm also really early into it. Well, I'd say I'm about like definitely not halfway, like just under halfway. So maybe like the last act is like this revolutionary thing that like blows me away and it becomes my game of the year. I don't know yet. I'm still quite early, but I am really enjoying what I've played, and it is one of the least stressful games I've played in a long time. Like, it is very nice to just sit there and watch the pretty graphics, watch those weird little rot things just run around. I like it. Like, it's a sweet game.
And we'll stick on the through line of talking about games that really aren't RPGs at all by going over to something that James has been playing. So he's also talked a bit on previous podcasts about his import of Hajimari, but he's also been playing on the side some Metroid titles, or has it just been the one?
No. So back in June or July, I played through the 2D Metroid games I hadn't played before, besides Samus Returns, Zero Mission and Fusion, basically getting caught up for Dread. So I've owned Samus Returns for quite a while now on the 3DS, obviously, and I wanted to play it. I put about an hour into it on my 3DS, decided, no, I don't want to get hand cramps. I can't play my 3DS anymore, especially for action titles. For something like Etrian Odyssey, fine, but for like Metroid, it's just, I don't know. I just can't. So I made a dump and I played through it on Citra on stream. So yeah, I enjoyed it. It's funny because with Samus Returns, you've got so many people talking about how they feel about the changes that Mercury's theme brought to the table, namely the melee counter, and kind of there's a lot of contention about how Samus Returns plays and how it feels compared to the rest of the series.
Yeah, it definitely feels more action packed because it definitely has that Mercury's theme type of like side scroller polish because they did the Castlevania Lords of Shadow side scroller game too. Off of that.
Mirror of Fate.
Mirrors of Fate.
Yeah.
Yep.
Overall, though, I was pretty pleasantly surprised, and especially seeing the changes that Dread's made and looking at the trailer again like a couple of times. I'm really, really excited for Dread. There's a pretty good chance that that's going to be my game of the year because I really enjoyed Samus Returns, and man, Dread looks so freaking good.
Yeah,
what about Psychonauts?
I don't know if I can draw like a really strong line here, but I have not played. The only Mercury's Theme games that I've played are their Castlevania ones, which especially Mirror of Fate and their second one, which had a lot of like hoopla behind the scenes with its like director. My main takeaway from those games is that they have amazing art direction. So like it's interesting to see them take a completely different direction with their Metroid titles, with Samus Returns and now Dread, because I do think they still look fantastic, even though it's a very different sort of game.
I forgot Mercury's Theme is involved with Dread, right?
Yep.
Yeah, they're the developer.
Okay. Yeah,
Retro Studios is going to need a bit of time for
yeah, for sure. But yeah, Dread has a lot of potential. Like I haven't really seen much of it outside of its like initial reveal because I don't really want to know much about it. But like the bits of things I've seen, it's like these are smart ways to modernize the Metroid formula. It looks really slick.
Yeah. I would avoid the trailers. They're amazing. Like, they're really, really like good atmospheric trailers, but apparently they do like show quite a lot. I'm new to Metroid completely. Like, I've never played a single one, so I'm
like I don't really care about like whenever it comes to Metroid type stuff. Like, I don't really care about like, oh, are there story spoilers in it? It's more like I just want to see the different environments for myself for the first time.
Okay.
And they have shown off a few of the bosses and things. So.
Yeah, don't watch the most recent trailer because they basically show off like a short glimpse of pretty much every area.
That's how I was like kind of facing away because like we did a group watch here at Discord of the Nintendo Direct, and like I kind of just had like my direction elsewhere when Dread was on the screen. I was like, oh, well, okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy to see how it does. And it's like one thing for sure is that if Dread doesn't sell well, absolutely nobody can blame Nintendo for not marketing it.
Oh yeah, they've been marketing the shit out of it. It's the most like
it too much.
It's the biggest Metroid push they've done in forever.
They're treating it as their holiday title, which is huge. Like, Metroid is Nintendo's biggest release of the year. Like, if you had told me that, like, even like 6 months ago, I would have called you insane.
Well, it's kind of weird because about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, it was always Mario, Zelda, Metroid, or maybe even longer than that. Like that's what people treated as like the three pillars, but Metroid really never quite fit there because like Mario Kart always did better. Splatoon came in and was like a huge seller, and then Animal Crossing did insane numbers last year, and then Metroid just kind of kept falling down the list in terms of like how relevant it was, and people would even joke about it, like in terms of like the 25th anniversary for Mario versus Zelda, what Nintendo would do versus for Metroid, they didn't do anything, and now here they are, like 2021, Metroid is getting the spotlight that it's never had before. You could say maybe it's in the absence of any other options, but still, it's nice to see.
If you were cynical, you might say that.
You have to have a little bit of cynicism, but no, if that's the circumstances that bring about why they're giving it such a push. And hey, we kind of poo-pooed on Capcom pushing Monster Hunter Stories 2 so much, and that ended up selling really well. So
yeah, exactly. The formula works. Yeah. So that means that SMT5 is on track to sell like 10 million at this rate.
Marketing is effective. The one thing about Samus Returns that it feels weird because it released so late in the life cycle. Like was the Switch out when it came out? Or was it like bang bang?
It was pretty close. I remember that game and the WarioWare game, the last WarioWare that came out on 3DS. Like those were the final two games I played on my 3DS. I haven't really touched it since. So that's kind of my memory of like where my 3DS was at.
But I guess James will have the best feeling for all of us, like to see how Mercury Steam improved from Take 1 to Take 2 going into Dread.
Yeah, for sure. Like Samus Returns had it felt really weird to be honest. Like I didn't hate it, but it was like one of those, man, Metroid is really different now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very different. I still enjoyed it quite a bit. I think the one thing that people don't give Mercury Steam enough credit for is they did a really good job of making the different zones feel visually distinct. Like even more so than like AM2R did. And I'm kind of glad that like both AM2R and Samus Returns exists, because they're both very different takes on like remaking the same game, and it's really interesting from like a game development standpoint to kind of see how two different teams can go in wildly different directions and still have like great games at the end of it. Really cool.
And that's pretty much all we had for the games talk section. We'll bring up a few more because they'll basically become relevant as we go through what was announced in the Nintendo Direct. But before we get into everything that came out of that Direct, we do have two features up on the site from this last week. One of them is kind of like very similar to the one that we had last week when we had Cullen on the podcast. He wrote up a kind of an impression sort of overview for the Switch port of Ni no Kuni 2. And he basically just went back to do it again and did the same thing for the Switch port of Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. So if you are, have you played through all of the DLC on Kakarot? I know you played the first two. Did you do the Trunks stuff?
I did most of it, and I was impressed with like how well they translated it over to a game and didn't leave stuff out. But I was over Kakarot, like it's a really, really good game, but once you put in like 40-50 hours, you're done. I was done.
Yeah, so Colin is, if you listened to him on the podcast last week, if a game releases on Switch, he's like 3 times more likely to pay attention to it, and he seems pretty impressed with what Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, how it plays on the Switch. So
Goku always wins, baby.
Yep. And then we also got a feature up on the site where if you've listened to the podcast, you've heard some of James's impressions on his import of Hajimari no Kiseki, or Trails into Reverie, as when it will release here in years and years. But he wrote up his formal thoughts into an import impressions article up on the site. And maybe I'll let James speak to it because it's a positive piece. Don't worry. Put down your pitchforks.
Yeah, please put down your pitchforks. I can't take another. Basically, it doesn't right the wrongs of Cold Steel 4 in my eyes, but it does a lot to make me much more excited for the series' future. It's a really good game. It's not perfect. It's definitely not perfect. But if you're the type of Trails fan that I am, I don't see any reason why you won't enjoy like Hajimari or Trails into Reverie quite a bit. Again, read the article if you want to get like the full impressions. It doesn't have any spoilers. I was pretty safe to make sure it was like just talking about the like systemic like changes and like how, not the, well, I think I had an easier time writing about Hajimari than I did Cold Steel 4, which is kind of weird.
Well, that's actually just maybe indicative that you actually enjoyed it rather than you wished it was better. But yeah, so we've heard you talk on the podcast a couple times, but we have the formal thoughts up. But I assume most of us are going to be in the same boat as me that has to wait for a few years. But it's nice to know that it's worth looking forward to.
At least this is semantic, but I didn't import it. I borrowed a copy from someone that imported it. So
okay.
5 days till the new Trails game comes out in Japan. So
you guys have it pre-ordered?
There.
I have it preloaded. Yeah.
I'm still thinking about it. I don't know. I'm still in that phase of like.
Well, Josh, you need to play Hajimari first.
No, we're gonna play Melty instead. It comes out on the same day.
You're right. Maybe I should just be like, fuck Trails.
You need to make room for the Guardians of the Galaxy. Come on, guys.
You know what, Josh? I have the perfect idea. Get Hajimari on PC since you're just building a new PC.
So you got to build that PC first.
It's true.
Well, I already pledged to help him with that.
Yeah, but it's not built, so it doesn't.
James is going to build the PC.
That's right. Look. My friends have dubbed me before the Antichrist of technology, so that should tell you everything you need to know about when I try to build PCs. I've done it twice, and twice bad things have happened.
I think I'm in the same boat. I tried to do modifications I see from the net, and they didn't go out so well.
And with that, we're going to move into all of the things that were discussed and introduced and announced in the Nintendo Direct. So very much a news-heavy podcast, but there's a lot to talk about. It feels like over the last couple of years, like I remember when I first joined the site, whenever we covered Nintendo Directs, there was like one or two or maybe three things to pick at for our coverage. It just seems like every single year there's more and more. That could be more RPG focus from Nintendo Studios and partners, or it could be that we're just like just covering more stuff just generically. But every single time there's a Nintendo Direct, it's always like a really cool site behind the scenes here to get all the news up, to get all the new media, all the new trailers, all the new screenshots and images, and get it all right out to do a podcast over it. So
it's the natural state of things. As years have gone by, everything's an RPG now, Brian. I'm sorry. Yep.
So I don't know the order here, but this is kind of an order of prominence, I guess. Games that we're most interested in from our site's purview. So not necessarily the order that they were announced in the Nintendo Direct. I did not put this first, but if it was my choice, I would have put it first anyways. And that is, we have a release date for what was formerly known as Project Triangle Strategy, now known as Triangle Strategy. Who called it?
Yeah, I won.
I think we all called it.
Yes. I love that they just like, they give people the glimmer of hope that like, this can't possibly be the final name, right? It can't just be called Triangle Strategy, right? And sure enough, just like Project Octopath Traveler. Yeah.
Yay. What
about
we did say this.
Strategy?
We said this when it got announced that it would be Triangle Strategy.
I don't even know why they do the working title thing. It's like, it's just going to be what it is that they announced. So
before we get too far off, what about Triangle Strategy, Brian? What's going on? There?
So way back in February, that's when I think it was February. That's when the demo released for Project Triangle Strategy at the time, and I actually liked it enough that I like wrote up a big feature about more of a listicle about all the things that I really enjoyed about it. Like that demo, even though it was like a vertical slice, it did show one of the things they marketed this game as is that it's going to be kind of like that Tactics Ogre-esque, very like divergent storytelling depending on the path you choose. And that's you see a lot of games kind of market that like choice and consequence. We're just going to throw those buzzwords in and get people to buy our game, and it doesn't end up meaning anything. But at least in the demo, depending on the choice you make, the second map that you go to, like the second battle encounter, is completely different with a different objective, different tools, and it's like even in that vertical slice, it kind of sold the concept at least. But for this, they've announced that the release date is going to be March 4th of next year, 2022. The Nintendo official site does have a full list of basically feedbacks from the demo survey about difficulty, about load times, about some of the battle specifics, about graphics in terms of like camera controls and zoom in, zoom out, things like that. So it's very similar to the Strangers of Paradise. No, I was going to say about like the demo results from the on Square Enix's end for their Neo like action game, Strangers of Paradise, or Strangers, whatever that one's called, Chaos game.
Chaos game. There we go.
Chaos.
So, this is a game that I'm really excited for. Obviously, anyone that has any like nostalgia for Final Fantasy Tactics or Tactics Ogre or whatever, this is definitely who they're kind of trying to court with this game. And I do think that the demo really kind of sold the idea. So, I think
I have high hopes. I think it was. I continue to be very thankful now that like a good portion of like developers have gone this route of like, hey, we'll release a demo and then we'll release a survey and then we'll actually give you like visual, like a whole trailer detailing. Okay, we heard you from the survey, and then we're showing you the improvements that we're making in the final game based on your feedback from the survey. I think it's one of the most effective ways to like just kind of like market a game to me these days. It's like, okay, I understand where you're going with this now. Thank you.
So from the changes that they listed, like I know they did a whole trailer for it, like listing a bunch of stuff. Does any of it stand out as like, oh yeah, that needed changing, or is it all just smaller quality of life things to you guys?
For me, the big thing for me was like the camera control, specifically in that game. Hopefully, the load times are noticeable. It's hard to guess from a trailer, but just for me, the camera controls in the isometric tactical RPG is always key. Like having that be like responsive and flexible.
The one thing that I actually wanted them to see them fix that I don't think they addressed was, and a lot of people complained about Octopath Traveler 2 for this, is that it's got like this weird depth of field effect where it's an isometric game in terms of like your camera's perspective, but like areas in the back parts of the rooms that you're witnessing or the fields that you're on are all blurred and things in the foreground are focused. And like that's fine if you want to have like a slight depth of field effect for style. But what happens is that like there's a scene in the demo at least where there's two characters talking, and as the dialogue continues, like each one shifts in and out of focus, and it's just really distracting. Just like, can you just pick like a focal point and stick with it even if two different people are talking? Like I just felt like they just like, this is a neat trick, and then they just like dialed it up to 15. I'm like, please stop.
My distinct memory from the demo where like that really propped up in an intrusive way for me. But like I think there was like this proclamation at like the balcony of this castle, and like the nearby foliage like kept on shifting in and out of focus in a really distracting way. That's like my big memory of it when I was playing through it months ago. I hope that's like, I don't know if they addressed that or not, but hopefully there is,
you just gotta wait for the PC release, like the Octopath Traveler eventually got, and then wait for people to mod out the depth of field effect. There you go.
Great, awesome. Just what I always wanted. Always waiting months and months for for people to mod things out and fix it. The optimal gaming experience.
I actually don't mind depth of field as like in principle. It's just the implementation in the demo was really distracting. So hopefully they've tweaked it, or hopefully at least the final game will have some options for like strength.
I'll be honest. Like the second thing I usually turn off if a game allows for it is like first motion blur, second depth of field is usually like the things I turn off first.
Yeah, motion blur is always. Oh, I was gonna say motion blur is always what I turn off.
I don't mind it in certain games, but some games just look terrible, like Final Fantasy Type 0.
I knew as soon as someone uttered the words motion blur, people would bring that up. It's like, that's requisite.
That's the classic example. But that's the reason why I got Tales of Arise on PC instead of PS5, because when I tried the PS5 demo and I swung the camera around the first time, like this motion blur is like implemented in a very distracting way for me. Like I don't know like how people feel about it with the console versions, but like playing it on PC and having that to be able toggled off, like it feels, I have. It doesn't feel as distracting now. Like I can just like freely explore the world without having to worry about it looking like shit every time I happen to move the right analog stick.
Another one of the big announcements at the Nintendo Direct was the new expansion for Monster Hunter Rise, which if you like, based on the precedent set by World and Iceborne, I guess maybe this was expected, but some of the details actually are a bit surprising. So Monster Hunter Rise, Sunbreak, new expansion was announced, set to release in summer of next year for Nintendo Switch and simultaneously with PC, which is different from Iceborne, which was delayed in both cases. Go ahead.
That's what I was hoping for. Day and date with PC. I am never touching my Switch save ever again.
I hope they allow us to like
cross save, please.
Cross save, please. I really want it. I'll fucking get it again at PC if you like us. Man, I don't know.
I'll play it either way because you know that they're probably gonna have something like the Defender armor, or whatever it was called, that I
supported.
Yeah. Either way, it's not like Rise's base game was that long, so.
True, it's true. Like it's easily completable. But yeah, we finally got our Monster Hunter G rank expansion for Rise, James. I'm excited. This is where the real Monster Hunter starts again.
Give me an end game. Give me an end game.
The real Monster Hunter was playing it. Me, you, CD.
I'm sorry.
It was the friends we made along the way.
It only meant the high ranks. Okay. It wasn't real Monster Hunter for me. I was like, yeah, this is like the typical treadmill, but where's G rank?
They do mention that it's a new quest rank. I wonder if they'll just call it Master Rank again. I know you long times will call it G rank, but now the base game Rise is slated to release on PC in early 2022, but like there's no details on like when the base game will be available versus the Sunbreak expansion for PC. So I'm surprised they didn't like square that out, but maybe
I'd have to imagine it will just like the PC launch will just have all the current content up to where the Switch Rise is right now, right? It'd be insane if like they'd have to like wait for like the other part of it, like the Switch crowd did.
Well, to be fair, it's not like there's much they'd have to wait for. It took only a month for Rise to get like finished on Switch, and we haven't gotten anything since. So
yeah, it's just like the collab things, like they did like a Mega Man, like you can dress your puppy now as Roll, or not Roll. What's the dog's name? I already forgot. The Roll was the girl.
Rush?
No, the Mega Man.
Oh, the Mega Man dog.
Oh shit, I forget his name.
Is it Rush?
Yeah,
Rush, thank you. Right. I was like, that Roll isn't right. That Roll's the girl. Yes, thank you, Rush.
Yeah, the thing is that I have not played Rise, but I played the hell out of World and Iceborne, but that seems like it had much of a more games as a service sort of philosophy behind it, where they just kept adding and adding and adding across like 6 different types of updates, where Rise didn't quite ever have that sort of post-launch support, which maybe was actually for the best, that it didn't just go long in the tooth, and then we wouldn't have this like weird offset PC to console issue that we had with World. I do have a question for James or other longtime Monster Hunter folks. So this demon-esque looking dragon in this teaser. I was gonna say, like, do we recognize this? Should I be looking at this and going like, holy shit, or it's just like, oh
yeah. I was asking me this. I was like, I'm pretty sure it's new because that's new. Because that's how they announce these games, is with a new flagship for the expansion.
Yeah, like I don't think there's ever been a new Monster Hunter game, like an actual new Monster Hunter game, where the flagship was a monster we already knew about.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, no, there hasn't.
I kind of like it. It looks like a vampire dragon. Go ahead, George.
Yep.
Are you finally gonna play Monster Hunter Rise? I know I was asking you to do it. Oh my god, that was this year. Okay, whatever. Yeah. But are you gonna join it?
Let's see. I have a long time to think about it because summer 2022. So
well, you have until early 2022, and it's not like I'm gonna review the PC version. That's not what we usually do.
You're Brian.
Brian, you are the most qualified person to review the PC version of Monster Hunter Rise.
Dude, I'll probably have my new PC up by the time Rise hits too on PC. Ooh.
Now, when World first released on PC, there was a lot of like it uses entirely, maybe not entirely, but mostly all the Steamworks integration for the online network and backend stuff. So I assume they're going to stick with that. But I remember when World first launched, there was a lot of people with disconnection issues and all that stuff.
It's
so
still
hopefully
an issue.
Still, I remember it attenuated a bit as it got along. I stopped having as frequent of problems, but hopefully Rise and Rise Sunbreak launch on PC, and at least they've got like the know-how behind them, or that would be my hope anyway.
It is funny because the like a lot of the responses to this was like, this was Pokemon, we'd have a Moonbreak as well.
And then the meme entry, Gunbreak.
Hell yeah, I'm in.
Gunbreak.
We also got a release date for us in the West for Rune Factory 5. So I do know that this launched last year in May in Japan, and I don't remember if we talked about. Sorry, yes, this year. A year prior to the release in the West, which will be next year. So yeah, May and this year in Japan. And I do know that Chow had imported it and was playing it, and we had watched him a little bit on it. I don't remember if it came up on a podcast at all.
I talked about it in a podcast.
Yeah. I couldn't remember if it was a podcast or if it was just us just chatting in here. But it will release on March 22nd, also 2022, and then March 25th in Europe for Nintendo Switch. Did you ever end up finishing Rune Factory 5, or did you end up like falling off of it?
I'm kind of falling off of it and going back on and off. I don't know. I'm not really totally sold. I think it's probably the performance issue, or maybe when you discover exploits, it gets patched in the next patch or something.
Dude, I'm thinking man, I hope they announce a PC version not that far off, because it seems like a fun game. But man, when every day I hear about this game is like, it's 70% the performance issues and maybe 30% game content, because it feels so prevalent in what the current release in Japan. I don't know if it's gonna get any better for the Western release. On top of this release date, though, Xseed Games had a localization blog up for this, and they're actually adding same-sex marriages for the first time in the series, and I guess that'll come as an update for the Japanese version as well. So people are now just free to pursue romance no matter what protagonist they choose. Which
always
good on them. Good on them.
Yeah, I think that's a great option.
Yeah, but I know a lot of people have been clamoring for it. I think you even clamored for it too, when we were talking about it.
People have been begging this since the series probably started. Maybe around the third game or the fourth game. They're like, it's like, when is this coming? And people were expecting it to be in 5, right? But it wasn't there when it launched. So good on them for adding it.
And hopefully this is just like a standard thing that's just going to be there at launch in future entries. This shouldn't be like an update, let's say in Japan or whatever. That this should just be there at launch. But for the Western release, it will be there at launch. And cool. And I feel like they'll have new animated cutscenes for them, like in the trailer, like they showed off that hey, there'll be an animated cutscene for the same-sex marriages, during the wedding ceremony and whatnot. So sure.
Far cry from the best friend system that some similar games had done for a while. It's kind of like a weird workaround.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. This next game that showed up at the Nintendo Direct was, did we expect to see this here? We talked about this on the podcast last week, and that is the teaser for Voice of Cars, The Isle Dragon Roars, which is a new Yoko Taro project as creative director. Very kind of hard to say title. We just had the 30-second teaser, and I didn't know when we expected to hear more about this game, but we ended up hearing about it at the Nintendo Direct. So we did get a full trailer for Voice of Cards, The Isle Dragon Roars. It's going to be released on Switch, PlayStation 4, and PC on October 28th. As the biggest Taro fan here, Josh, what did you see out of this trailer that excites you or doesn't excite you?
There's quite a bit that surprising the trailer. They did confirm that Alem will be working in it, and they've done some high-profile mobile projects like Brave Frontier, Brave Exvius, the Final Fantasy series. They actually since we only got a teaser earlier, they actually showed off gameplay of the game, and they also announced a demo that's already out on the eShop and PSN that I tried out. It's weird because it's basically a standard turn-based RPG. Even think of the very first Final Fantasy of you have this at least in the demo, you have this group of 3 heroes. This was one woman and 2 accompanying dudes. One's a mage type, one's the white mage, and one's a warrior. And the whole entire game is presented through cards. So like even the overworld where you like walk on, like say you go out of this like castle and like all the tiles of that castle are all cards, and you're just like a little marker piece like going through these cards. All the cards are like flipped down on the overworld, and like they'll only flip up if you travel to like an adjacent card, and like say you go to this card, then the three adjacent touching cards will unveil themselves, and like you could obviously have random encounters on that overworld, or like an event will happen, like say kind of like sort of like Oregon Trail, like where you go to a node and like an event will happen. Like there's in the demo, you'll have like this goblin that's like poison. It's like, do you want to use an antidote on it? You'll use an antidote, and it's like, okay, no, it'll thank you later and like give you an item and whatnot. But it's everything is narrated by a game master. So and they have different game masters, obviously, for the Japanese version and English version. In the English, you have Todd Habercorn doing it, and then for the Japanese one, I think that's Hiroki Yasumoto. And it's, I wish like there was like more to like really like go in, but like if you just think of like a standard RPG, just think of like that's this game, but everything is presented through cards. So like even in battles, like when you enter a random battle in it, it'll get like a separate like card table and like shift it to like the screen, and then like it's like you're having like a card game with someone. So you have like these 2 enemy cards against your 3 hero cards, and all of them have their command turn-based things you can do, like attacks, cast a spell, pass a turn, but they're all presented through cards. And everything that like everything you do is like done through card animation. So let's say
my favorite part of this trailer is there's a part where it's showing like a battle, and like one of the players' cards is like flipping and spinning and attacking the enemy card. Like that's the animation they go with. They're just like, how do we animate this? What is it? What if it just spins like a buzzsaw and it does damage? Like, go with it. Good, perfect.
Yeah, so it's like a standard like kind of like D&D type of like session that you would have, except everything is like visualized through like card flips, and it's a neat thing. But I think I'm wondering like right now it's novel because of like it's a lot of these things have been done before, like systems wise, like nothing is necessarily new in it. Like the only thing in quote unquote new about it is the way it presents the presentation itself,
how it's abstracted to the card.
Yeah, it's very distilled down to like where RPGs came from. RPGs were derived from video game RPGs were derived from like these tabletop RPGs, and now you're just kind of like doing like a full circle of like, okay, how would we like depict that like in a video game as a tabletop RPG? Obviously you don't have to worry about like the cost of buying cards, so you just have like a plethora of cards spread across it and whatnot. So
incoming digital booster packs.
Yeah, man, that'd be great. So I'm not really. I think the weird thing that I don't like about it is just the responsiveness of the controls. Like you have to move from tile to tile to tile, card to card to card in like the overworld, what you would think as the overworld, and like you have to wait for the animation, like to be like the quick half-second animation of like the adjacent cards to flip over, and then see is there a random encounter or is there an event or whatever. But like I just wish there was like a faster way to like traverse the map and like maybe have like all these cards flip as you're going through it, because that feels cumbersome. Like you're just basically sacrificing the tactile feedback for the sake of like presentation of like I hope this is like a more small scale project with like maybe a maximum time of 20 hours. That's what I'm hoping for. But other than that, it's like there's not really much to talk about other, because you kind of visit this town, and then you're trying to find like this royal treasure for this queen, so you go through a dungeon and see that. But it's like a standard RPG, and I'm really interested to see like if there's more to it, I guess, because I think there's a lot of potential that it can uncover. Like there's like already like an in-game card game that you can have that's available for multiplayer once you unlock it as well. It's a very simple like point accruement game. It's where you kind of like make sets of cards and try to get more points than the opponent. Along with the game announcement, since a lot of the key figures on this project, Taro, Saito, Okabe, Fujisaka, all of those worked on the recent Nier Replicant re-release. So a lot of the DLC that they announced for this game is themed around that. So you have like an Emil avatar, an Emil pattern.
Yes.
And a Grimoire Weiss board and Devilish music. So it's sure, why not? But I don't think it's going to make a big difference. I think the thing that really tripped me up, and I guess maybe I was just seeing things like in the trailer that they showed in the presentation. One of the cards looked like one from Dragon Guard 3. I was like, is that? I actually never went to go back in the stream and like confirm that. I only saw like the official trailer and she wasn't there. But I don't know. It has potential. I don't know yet if I'm really. I feel neutral about it right now. I guess it has a lot to prove for me, but that's all in good time. I think the thing that really ticks me off is the release date, because this game comes out on the same day as Super Robot Wars 30, that Fatal Frame Made in a Blackwater updated port, and Undernauts. So.
And again, that's October 28th. Yeah.
Yep.
It's kind of cool just to see like a passion project behind these developers that we've already played so many great games from.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I remember, when speaking about Nier, months ago, I just the one thing I wanted for this group is just, hey, make a new thing that's totally detached, from everything else. Just make your own.
There it is.
Smaller scope thing, and hopefully this is it. Hopefully it's like it's a tight game. It's not like a 50-hour RPG or something. That's not what I want for this game, because I could easily see it drag itself out if it tries to go for a grand scope.
Yeah,
I'm surprised to hear that it's so it seems so traditional. Like when I heard it was a card thing, I know I'm not really a massive fan of traditional RPGs anyway, but when I heard it was a card thing especially, I was like, yeah, no, I am out. Never mind. So partly wonders if that's maybe doing a little disservice to it.
I say try out the demo, see if it's for you.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I can't really complain until I've tried.
Yeah, but I think you'll find it's very easy to get into. But it plays exactly like what you'd think a standard turn-based RPG is. It doesn't pull any tricks, at least from the demo. It's just the only thing.
Like a dragon.
Yes, exactly.
The gold standard of turn-based RPGs.
The only thing different about it is just everything is just presented through cards. That's it. It's not a crazy you have to learn the rules of this card game. No, it's a standard turn-based RPG.
Part of me is this is going to sound cynical, but it's do your own thing. Here it is. But by the way, remember, we also made Nier, so here's all this Emil and Grimoire Weiss stuff. I get it. Yeah. People that's going to help sell it. It's just kind of okay. Do you remember Nier? Here's Nier stuff. You like Nier, right? Play our game.
It's like when they did the Automata DLC for Replicant. It's we got to get these people who were played Automata. It's
kind of reminds me of how they marketed that, where they were the prequel to Automata. I mean, it's not incorrect, but it's just sort of funny how they were so heavily, banking on it. It's not incorrect or unsurprising, or surprising, I should say. It's just the fact that they were banking on it so hard was just kind of amusing.
Yeah, but as you expect, it has really great music because Akabe is behind it, and if nothing else, I'm looking forward to the game soundtrack.
This next topic, I'm not sure there's going to be a lot of excitement for, but maybe I'm misinterpreting. We'll see. That we're going to be talking about Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity. Its second expansion pass component, Guardian of Remembrance, will launch on the next day, October 29th. So I remember when this expansion pass was first announced, February or something, or way early in the year, and it because this game released last October. Then they said there was going to have an expansion pass with 2 parts, and the second part is a year after the original release, where I guess we've talked about this on the podcast before, where it's is anyone still playing this or really clamoring for more? I don't know, but they also kind of gave away, with the initial announcement of the expansion pass, they heavily did the artwork of the characters Robbie and Pura, as like these will probably be the people that end up being playable. And yep, turns out that they end up being played, even though it kind of treats them as like a single character, it seems, which might be interesting. It'll also add some more story stuff, more battles in Kakariko and some other villages, and some new stages. So the first part of the expansion pass released back in June, but I'll be honest, like it didn't really register for me. I didn't really think about it much. Don't know if anyone really had a big takeaway from that, but I guess it's cool to see the game supported for whatever audience it has. But
when Adam and I were watching this on the Direct, Adam was like, "Oh yeah, this was the thing that was happening." I was like, "Yeah, I kind of had the same train of thought too."
It was sort of thing where like we had completely forgot it was coming, but as soon as you see it, you remember. Like, yeah, I guess they did say that there was more coming to this game. So, I mean, it's not like this game sold like 3 million copies, right?
Yeah, that's totally
like the best-selling Muso game. So there is an audience there.
I just to sound like really cynical, this is gonna make me sound like a chud, I know, but it's I just don't. When I played it, it ran so poorly that it's just like it's kind of shocking. Like frame rate doesn't matter that much. Like I've played games like the original Psychonauts has crap frame rate, and I don't know how I've brought Psychonauts into this, but I have. But to come from Nintendo, I know it's not Nintendo developing it, but for them to be like, yeah, this is fine, it isn't fine. It's awful, the frame rate.
3 million
I guess
people,
that just made me grumpy. Yeah, apparently. Apparently,
that's what matters. If enough people are fine with it, then I guess the standard is it's fine then.
Yep.
I guess it is still cool in principle just to see Koei Tecmo and Nintendo still have this really strong relationship for publishing their IPs. So that in principle is cool, I suppose.
Koei Tecmo's moving out to greener pastures. Okay, now they're going for the Otome audience.
What's the context there?
The Token Ranbu. Was it Token Ranbu?
Yeah.
That's the next Muso game project that they have. It's Token Ranbu is a very popular Otome franchise over in Japan. And I guess that's coming over like West too. Like I was very surprised to hear a Western released like a half-hour like presentation in like subtitled in English from like Koei Tecmo say, yeah, this is coming out here for the Switch. That they show gameplay footage. It's like really fucking Hyrule Age of Calamity levels of like performance footage they showed for that game. It's like, well, the more things change, the more things stay the same, I guess.
I got the audience somehow, you know.
It kind of stings a little too because for that game, like it has a PC release, but only over in Japan through the DMM Games Player. So you know, just Koei Tecmo is taking their Age of Calamity expertise and transferring it over for the Otome market.
Well, I suppose like with Nintendo titles, they're always kind of evergreen. I don't know if Hyrule Warriors would be as much as like a mainline Zelda game or Mario game or whatever, but you know, this will be sitting on like in Switch sections for years in Best Buys and Walmarts and Targets. And if people pick up this game and decide to buy into the expansion pass, which is $20, I think, and they'll get both parts. They'll get the Guardian and the motorcycle from the first part, and they'll get the new story from the second part and the new characters. So,
I would pick up Age of Calamity if they release a device that it runs 60 FPS on.
Some sort of Switch Pro.
The OLED.
You can try it out for science. I don't want to spend that money.
Well, here's one thing you can do, Josh.
Mm-hmm.
You can just emulate it on your new PC.
But I'll just because this is being released to the public, I'll purchase it first just to show that I support it. Then I'll dump it.
As you do. Or we'll just keep pretending that the Switch Pro is coming any day now.
Yeah. Any day. It's going to be in the next Direct, guys. I heard from a friend of a friend of a friend and their dog's cousins, uncles, aunts, granddaughter that the Switch Pro is getting.
Called the NX or something, isn't it?
We also got another shadow
uncle's
drop.
aunt's granddaughter be like either your sibling or your cousin.
I like how I'm trying to get into the next topic, but you guys are just going on this. Anyways, guys, next shadow drop from the Nintendo Direct was Actraiser Renaissance, now available on Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, Steam, and mobile. So I did not watch this live, but I saw a lot of weird anecdotes about people trying this game and then immediately like uninstalling it or immediately like turning away from it or suggesting that you just go back and play the original. I need some context here. Help me out here. Like, what is Actraiser Renaissance?
What is this game first, Brian? Maybe before we get into it, what is this game?
All right, so Actraiser, I've never played it, but it was an SNES game from Quintet, was the developer at the time, who is now defunct. So this is a kind of a remake from developer Sonic Powered of that SNES game. It is a 2D action platformer city builder something. I don't know.
What?
Let's talk about it. Chow is the expert on Actraiser.
I love people try to describe Actraiser because everyone has their own little like. How do I describe this moment? Go for it, Chow.
Well, Quintet likes to make a lot of video games that are based on religious themes, right? So I think if you played the original Japanese version, I think the main bad guy, Tanzura, is known as Satan, and the player character is known as God, right? Obviously, with these religious themes, it got changed for the official release. So the player character is called a Master in the American release. But anyway, it's more like a religious theme sort of game. So you go around trying to slay Tandra's minions, right? So there's like 6 demons that you gotta slay in each game, and I don't know, some of the demons represent a sin of some sort, but I guess these themes are kind of overlooked. For this remake, they actually completely changed the storyline. Now there's actually lore, and every town that you're trying to rebuild has their own like hero in this town, and they're trying to defend this town. You added all these like new features, like there's this new siege mode where you have to like control your town.
Before we get too into it, let's because we both played the original Actraiser, and let's kind of like walk. For people who don't know Actraiser, like kind of walk them through like what the basic game was back at the SNES.
That is true. Basically, the basic game is it's a side-scroller action game. You're using this character that could only swing his sword horizontally. It doesn't do much, so it doesn't seem like a lot of depth, right? It's just like a platformer where you're just trying to get to the next stage. But the core game is the world-building part, because once you free like the stage, you get this entire town, and you command this angel to rebuild it. And depending on the population, is your EXP. So let's say if this population or this town has a population of 900 people, that's 900 experience points for your character. And the more experience, the more levels you get, right?
What determines the population of a town? Like, is it depending on how well you do? How well you play?
You control the town. Like, you basically build roads. Like you basically command roads or where to build the roads, and they'll build a town over it. And one of the dumb ways to improve the town is like once the civilization gets higher, you have to destroy the old towns in order to get the stronger houses on there. So you would like throw a thunderbolt and blow up your old houses so that they would build the better houses.
It was definitely a game. I definitely there was controversy around it because, like as you said, it's so tied to religion that like just the concept of that, like you're playing this godly figure. It's like okay, I am now to flourish my civilization. I must take out the old and expand it more.
This game actually encourages you to do it in the new version. The new version actually has a tutorial that in order to improve it, you have to demolish these buildings.
I'm so confused.
So just a very basic thing, George, is like just think of like there are 2 parts of this game. Part of it is a side scroller action game, like think of your Castlevanias and whatnot. And then when you're not doing that in between like these levels, you're doing like this town management game, essentially.
Right, okay.
Yeah. That's the basic.
It just seems like I think I got like the conceptual like idea of it, but it seems like a weird mix.
That's the legacy of the game.
Yeah, they also made a sequel to this game back in the Super Nintendo, and they completely got rid of the world building, and people hated the sequel. They wrecked it.
Yeah. So and this one, the Renaissance remake, it just follows the first game while expanding upon it essentially.
Yeah, the combat's improved. Combat feels more like was it? It's sort of like a Ys game as well, because or like Wanderer from Ys, or the remake of it. The more enemies you kill, they keep dropping crystals, and those crystals, you gather enough, you get a buff, right?
Okay.
The hero also plays a lot different. The hero has a backdash, like from the Castlevania games.
Yeah. Okay.
And now he has a free hit combo, and you can even direct the way you attack. Obviously, magic is still broken, just like the original game. Because once you develop a town long enough, they find these relics, and the player character can now use magic, right? What's different about this one is that you can select the magic you can use in battle. Like you could quick swap to different magic instead of you starting a stage with the magic that you pick or something like that, right? From what I remember.
That sounds right.
Yeah, the combat's a lot better, but obviously I don't think it fits today's standards. It's still kind of dated, but it is what it is.
I'm trying to think, like, what do modern Actraiser fans want from like an updated re-release of this game? Like
backdash, apparently.
I just wonder, like, if this is successful, would they remake the sequel? I'm really interested in the sequel, because even though the sequel got scorned, I think the sequel is actually pretty cool. Besides, not having the world simulator, if they could add that world simulator back to the sequel, I think it would be cool. Because the second game is really dark.
How is the new arrangements by Yuzo Koshiro is still involved with this? And then one of the features is like you're able to toggle between the original and the newly remastered soundtrack. Have you gotten to take a listen at the new tracks?
I did. I actually like the old songs a lot more, but maybe it's a nostalgic thing, because when you listen to Fillmore, the original is actually really composed like super well. So it's pretty hard to top, in my opinion.
Apparently, there are new songs. Well, apparently there's like new songs entirely, and he also did Super Famicom versions of the new songs.
Okay.
Or something like that.
Oh.
Because the only reason I know that is he tweeted out that he had done a Super Famicom song for Hinagame Korone, and since the timing was perfect, where he still had everything set up to do like Super Famicom work when he was requested to do the new songs for Actraiser. Kind of hilarious.
I'm glad his love for a certain VTuber led him to be more prepared for his upcoming project. It's a beautiful story.
Well, I just hope this gives them room to remake some of these forgotten properties from Quintet. Like, was it Soul Blazer? Maybe Illusion Saga. Saga. Illusion of Gaia.
Illusion of Gaia.
And Terragama. Is that what it's called? Terragama? Yeah, that's our opening song for this podcast. If people were curious. If that's a big story. Yes.
Yep. George finding out right now.
I've always wondered that. I knew if I asked, it'd be like, it's Fun Fancy 2, George. Shut up. You should know that. So I just never asked. Wow.
George, I love you.
For
great.
This podcast and this podcast only, we should use a Final Fantasy 2 track for the opening.
I wouldn't know.
So was I mistaken? Like, I introduced this news bit with I almost said Terranigma with Actraiser Renaissance, because I saw a bunch of people like play it and then immediately like be soured on it. You didn't have that impression, Chow? I thought people thought the art style was bad or something.
It's more modernized, but it's not what they're used to. The angel was just like a tiny little sprite in the original with no. How can you?
I've definitely seen some footage, and I can see what people are getting at. It's not everything is the same resolution for the assets. Like the player's like sprite, it's kind of like a Donkey Kong Country deal where it's a 3D model that's rotoscoped onto a sprite. And for whatever reason, it's kind of lower resolution than the other assets in the game. And I can definitely see how that would be like off-putting.
Yeah.
So
but I think it seems like aside from the visuals, I think oddly enough, it seems like people are fine or happy with this. That's the impression I got, which is crazy. It's also weird because was it Sega or another company they like published like an Actraiser tribute like game just a few months back. Like I forgot what it was called, but it was clearly a game that like was tried to emulate Actraiser, and I forgot what it was called. It was a pretty
Seraph.
recent release. Yes, thank you. Who was that from?
Let me figure it out.
Well, thank you for the name though.
I just googled Actraiser tribute, and it was the first one. Soul Seraph. Sega is announced that they were publishing it back in 2019. It's on Steam. The developer is Ace Team.
Yeah,
Ace Team.
That's like the Xenoclash people.
And reviews are mixed. But yeah, it's on Steam. It's for $5. It's on sale right now. Soul Seraph. I don't know anything else about it, but
I still might pick this up. I'm not sure yet. This Actraiser thing.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I definitely enjoy this remake, but it could be in the nostalgia goggles taking in. But it's completely different. It's a whole different experience. If you want like a 1-to-1 remake, it's not what it is. So,
well, I don't want a 1-to-1 remake because like, I have respect for the original. I didn't necessarily enjoy the original. So maybe I don't know. Maybe this one will. Hearing that it's not a 1-to-1 thing is more of a plus for me. I'm still getting a kick out of in our Discord of George's being blown away.
I just can't believe it. I just can't believe I've never thought to even ask. But even if you'd said, "Oh, it's from Terra Enigma," I would not have known that was.
You're like, Terra who? Is that a Final Fantasy character?
Marvel's Avengers.
and just another lore for you, George. This game was never released in the US. It's in Europe only and Japan for its time.
I've literally never heard of it. Like, I usually know a lot less than you guys about like RPGs, ironically, but this is another level. I had no clue this existed.
You're young, but
fine. Now I do.
It's okay, George. I guess we forgive you. Do we forgive him?
I mean, I've never played it, so I don't have a leg to stand on.
Well, I guess Brian's part of the same boat.
But I also live in North America, so that's my excuse. It never released here.
Oh, yeah. So that's the ironclad rule of any people in Europe. Every European should know Terra Enigma.
All right, so this next bit of news isn't specifically RPG focused, but it does involve RPGs, and that's that Nintendo Switch Online is getting a literal expansion pack, like an additional, yet undisclosed charge to access more titles on the service, specifically Nintendo 64 and Sega Genesis games. So they announced...
Not to be confused with the Nintendo 64 expansion pack, because that was spelled with a P-A-K, not P-A-C-K in this case.
Oh yeah,
so
that was a stylish... Yeah, this is just called expansion pack for Nintendo Switch Online, but they did not share any pricing about what this would cost, which is interesting, but okay. The launch lineup will have very classic N64 games like Super Mario 64, Star Fox 64, Mario Kart. And then some of the games that they announced were coming later were like Majora's Mask, Kirby 64, and Paper Mario. Paper Mario is great, by the way, so that'll be cool that we have a modern way to play that. Did Paper Mario ever make it like onto WiiWare or eShop or any of that?
It was on Virtual Console.
Oh, that's what I meant, Virtual Console. Yeah. So okay, so I guess it's not like this is the first time I've been able to play Paper Mario in a while, but it'll be cool to have.
I'm happy I'm very happy that somehow Sin and Punishment got to sneak into here too out of nowhere. It's like, all right, so Sin and Punishment and Winback are just here as well.
Mm-hmm. And then for the launch Sega Genesis games, like some basic ones like Sonic 2, Echo the Dolphin. For an RPG, it does have Phantasy Star 4 on there.
Hell yeah!
It has Golden Axe, Gunstar Heroes, Shining Force, Strider. So
hell yeah!
I was an N64 kid and not a Genesis kid, so the Genesis titles mean a little bit less to me. They did announce that similar with the SNES and NES releases, that they will be releasing controllers for the Switch to be the N64 weird controller and the Genesis controller. So those will be options.
That's what I always wanted, a Nintendo 64 controller again.
There's no reason for it to get one if there's no 4-player GoldenEye.
True.
Yeah, they've not announced for GoldenEye.
Do you think they would try to get GoldenEye on the service somehow?
They got Banjo.
No, it's all about GoldenEye. Okay. It's like how do you even get the license to get?
Yeah, I was about to say, I bet there's some legalese that you have to drill through in order to get that to happen.
Yeah, like I wonder if we see Perfect Dark or GoldenEye here at some point, that'd be miraculous, I guess.
Perfect Dark, I think you could probably swing because they've got a pretty good relationship with Xbox, but GoldenEye is like a whole different thing with like Metro, Goldwyn Mayo, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
As a kid, whenever I played with the N64 controller, like I didn't really think about it, but now I'm looking at it like, man, what a weird guy. What a weird thing.
This also makes that Mario Party Superstars thing even weirder because that's like the upcoming like Mario Party game with like Nintendo 64 stages on it.
Oh my god, you're gonna be able to use the N64 controller for that.
Yeah. If they
I'm
have
gonna be cynical.
If they have the canoe rowing mini game in there and that N64 out, controller out, yeah.
I don't like being this guy all the time who's like, oh, this is good news, but I'm gonna poo-poo on it.
All right.
It depends how much, right? So if they charge, Nintendo Switch Online is pretty cheap, like compared to the other ones. But I don't always think it's worth it. Yeah, like I don't. Well, it's all relative to.
Well, like think about it. Like to a lot of people, like the offerings of Nintendo Switch Online at the moment is like it's like a non-negligible charge for them because it's $20 a year. It's not like oh no, it's not unlike the other services. It's like $50 or $60 a year. So if they add like an additional $5 or $10 charge to that service, I think that'll be fine. I think if they double that price for like $40 a year, I think that's when you start like.
Yeah, if it starts approaching
I think that's
plus
Xbox
Live.
Not.
Yeah.
I don't think for when you look at, I already don't really like paying for Xbox Live Gold and PlayStation Plus, but it's just become like the norm now. But when you look at the online games there and the infrastructure, like how well those online games work compared to Nintendo, which has Smash shit itself if you try and go online, and Smash is really the only thing I could think of I'd want to play online, I guess Splatoon, then it's just like...
You want to play Smash online?
I'd like to play Smash online.
You like the concept of thinking about it. Okay.
Yeah, I like Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl online. I don't like Smash online.
You know what, George? You need to get off that Wi-Fi if you want to play online.
True. Make a good point.
Maybe I have no leg to stand on. But my point being, it depends how much they charge on top of it, but it always feels like Nintendo finds a way to be like, hey, we know you wanted this. Here it is for more money again. And it's like, I don't know how people fall for it. Like, I like Nintendo as well. I think they make amazing games, but they're a business and they just prove that time and time again.
George, I don't get how people fall for special collector's editions. They're just like kind of overpriced for like full of products.
Yeah, George, I'm part of that same audience. People say the same thing about me and Gacha games. I hate this company. Why do I keep
I just say, George, like we're all different. Houses.
Yeah. I know. It's just, I don't know. It doesn't, I guess maybe because it's not even my, this isn't something I was really fussed about. If they start bringing like GameCube and Wii games,
this is purely driven nostalgia. Like they're just like, obviously baking in nostalgia. Like a lot of things these days are baking nostalgia. Like for me, it's like, if Nintendo told me, hey, instead of $20 a year, we'll charge you $30 a year, but you get to like think about playing like, hey, Mario Tennis 64 Sin and Punishment and fucking win back anytime you want to now.
You can play Majora's Mask with the original Zora swimming.
Yeah. And on top of that, like you have, you can play Mean Bean Machine, Phantasy Star 4, Shining Force as well on the go. Like okay, oh sure, that sounds great to me. Why not? So because I liked those games when I was a kid, so that's how they get you. And
it's just me being cynical. I was up front, like this is me being a dick about it, but this doesn't elicit anything from me.
That's fine that's fine because you're young. you didn't grow up with these games. That's why.
True.
By the way, I never said this, but the expansion pack service will launch in late October at some point. So that's all we really know about it. the last couple things from the Nintendo Direct were basically release dates. Well, actually, no, there was one more shadow drop. And this is one that we basically talked at length last week because of the rating leak. And that is Castlevania Advance Collection is now available for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. And this includes Circle of the Moon, Harmony of Dissonance, and Aria of Sorrow. So you kind of expected
Dracula
this.
X.
And Dracula X.
Oh, and Dracula X.
Did you miss the? It has like a it has a fourth
Castlevania game, which is Dracula X, which is a Super Nintendo game in this Advanced Collection, and it's like a reimagining of a Saturn game.
No, it's a reimagining of the PC Engine game. It's
the PC Engine. That's what it said.
Yeah, it's a prequel to Symphony of Night.
Yeah, Dracula is such a weird release. Yeah, I got it, and I've been playing a little bit of Circle of the Moon. Just like early on, like I haven't played this in fucking forever. It does have like some enhancements to it, like specifically for Circle of the Moon. I haven't tried the others. In Circle of the Moon, they have this like card system where some enemies in the game drop their cards, and like you have to mix and match their cards to like get like new spells. So let's say like the first two enemies in the game, like the skeleton bomber and like these boneheads, like they drop their cards and you mix and match them. So you make a fire whip and whatnot. In the original release, it was sort of frustrating because not every enemy in the game dropped their cards, and dropping card rates sometimes was really annoying. Some of them have like really low drop rates, so sometimes you'll forget like, do I have this card or not? And
I just used the glitch to use all the cards.
Yeah, but unfortunately in this collection, there's an achievement for getting all the cards. So
rip.
Yep, so you can't glitch around.
There's some really hard cards to get, like the one in the Coliseum. The Coliseum is super hard.
I'm not looking forward to it already. I already had spent like 15 to 20 minutes for getting the fucking first Earth Golem card, and that wasn't fun. So I'm like, fuck, it's Circle of the Moon. So in this version, every time like you hit those enemies that can potentially drop a card, it'll right away like in this battle log to the side that'll say, hey, here's the name of the name of the enemy, and like it'll show an icon whether you have the card or not already with it, which is kind of like a helpful thing. It'd be more helpful if they boosted the card rates, but that's not authentic. They also have a rewind feature for these games, so think of the Nintendo Switch Online, but it's basically that feature of like it has like a save state essentially, and you're rewinding that state back. And it seems like a solid port. This is done by M2. M2 does really, really, really great work when it comes to porting these old releases to modern systems. I think the weird thing, it doesn't have like at least for me, like I don't know if there was like a full screen option for the PC release on this, because whenever I boot it up, it's like in a windowed mode, but I can just like maximize it, and it's like it's close enough. These are still like the visuals are still updated like Game Boy Advance visuals. It's not like crazy or anything new, but it seems to run well, and it seems pretty solid, at least from Circle of the Moon. I think everyone who's like played it from the Steam reviews as well, like they're pretty happy with it. So it's also weird, like they kind of have, I don't know if this is present in the console versions, but like in the PC release, like there's like a touched up versions of like the tracks as well, so they're like a little bit more clear.
So did they fix the soundtrack for like Harmony?
I don't know if they fixed it. I didn't check that,
because the sound quality was like really poor when the game first came out because of the chips they used. Right, it was a different Konami branch that made the game, right?
So basically, the way that the GBA does audio is it doesn't actually have a dedicated sound chip. So if you want to get more out of the CPU, sometimes audio will have to suffer. So Harmony of Dissonance is actually using the original Game Boy sound chip, not the Game Boy Advance.
Yeah, you're right. You remember that. But it's a cool hopefully this leads to the Castlevania DS collection, because those are some of my favorite Castlevania games on those.
I know everyone's favorite Castlevania game is probably Aria, but I actually prefer the sequel more, Dawn of Sorrow.
Dawn of Sorrow isn't bad. I can see that.
But I think what people hate was like the touchscreen mechanics trying to kill certain bosses, the seals.
Yeah.
And I don't know, people rather have it patched and disable that. So, but what it is.
But anything to like make these games more accessible again, like in terms of just like being able to play them again, I'm all for. And it has like the options of like having a pixel perfect display, or if you're a godless heathen and stretching it out full screen. How's that?
A couple other release dates that came out of the Nintendo Direct. One of them is Disco Elysium, the final cut, is releasing for Nintendo Switch on October 12th. And when I bring that up, I'm wondering, is Cullen going to be the one interested in looking at this one to see how this game performs on Switch? And as part of the press release for this announcement, they say specifically this is not a port, but a painstaking reassembly of the critically acclaimed game for the Nintendo Switch. So obviously we've talked about this game at length for the past couple years. George.
Hell yes, we have.
And it obviously rated very highly for us back in 2019 when it originally launched. A lot of times these sort of CRPG, isometric RPG, I know even though Disco Elysium is kind of its own thing. Like we talked earlier in the podcast about comparing games to other games, but Disco Elysium, I don't really know like what you could fairly compare that to. But we've seen
would be like Planescape. That's about it, to be honest.
I didn't Planescape get a Switch port from Beamdog, but I think it did.
That sounds right.
So it'll be interesting to see how well, because obviously Disco Elysium when it first launched did have a little bit of performance issues on both PC and when it released later on the other consoles. So we'll see what state it's in when it launches, because October 12th. So.
This one will just like set your Switch on fire.
Yes,
that's the issue it'll launch with. It's like, oh, weird.
But
I'm intrigued. Like,
and then the review we have like, oh, there's like a game-breaking bug with it. It just sets your hardware on fire. It's like a little thing.
But it's still 10.
It's worth it.
It is worth it, no matter what. I'm intrigued. Their language is very like reimagining. I don't know. It seems it could just be like
reassembly
guff,
is what they said. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you would have to reassemble that game to like for the Switch in terms of like readability. Like I wouldn't want the game as is right now.
Oh god.
To just like. What does that game at the current game right now that we have? What would that look like on a small handheld screen? It'd be a miserable experience. So reassembling means, hey, you can actually like play this on the go and like read text clearly without any trouble. Then I'm all for it.
I remember actually. This is slightly off tangent, but it is about Disco Elysium. They recently did an update for the PS5 version. I haven't gone back to it in a while. I probably should. And in the tweet announcing like some of the changes, like. Oh yes, and we've made the fonts bigger. And I saw it, I was like, oh my god, yes, I can see. So I hope the Switch follows that exam.
The last time we talked about this game, we were talking about the texture on the car. With the Switch version, had that fixed texture on the car.
That was more than just hair. That looks kind of funny. That was like almost a game-breaking bug. So I guarantee that it won't. Oh my god, why did I say that? I can't guarantee that. They should know.
Are you a dev?
There'll be some other. I'm sure there'll be some weird oddity. I can't guarantee this, but I almost guarantee that there will be like some weird ass unexpected bug that came out of the fact that they're trying to reassemble this for the portable interface and things like that. Someone's gonna be like, Kuno is invisible now, apparently, or something.
Good.
Here's another surprise release date. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, that's the original game from 2003, is releasing for Nintendo Switch on November 11th. So I think I talked last week about how I don't know like if the new version of the game, the remake that was teased at the PlayStation event, like how much different of a tact it will take in terms of being an action game versus a dice roll based game. But if you want to play the original, now it'll be available on Switch. So
if you have a PS5 and a Switch, then just like play them side by side, same controller input. Somehow read that up, and then there you go. It's the ultimate test whether it's the remake is faithful.
I'm surprised though. Like, why not also just release it on the other consoles on like their digital services or something? I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. I would actually play it if it was on. I might play it on the Switch still because I've never actually played the original.
I imagine it'll fill up eventually on those. Like just weird contractual.
You have to hope, don't you? But it's really petty. But the fact that the Switch doesn't have achievements or trophies, they don't matter, but they help. Like in putting time aside for a game. Like I've got to that point where my trophy level is high enough. I'm like, yeah, I'll pick that. I'll pick that version.
Well, I talked about how playing Knights of the Old Republic on PC can be finicky nowadays without modding in terms of getting like the widescreen UI or whatever. So maybe this will actually be like a more convenient way to play this game without, it just should hopefully work out of the box. And it's obviously not that demanding of a game, so the Switch should be able to run it fine. But I could easily see myself picking this up.
They're missing. I guarantee you, they won't. They're going to miss the feature of like being able to swing your lightsaber with a detachable Joy-Con.
Oh god!
Come on.
I am perfectly happy controlling a Jedi through button inputs rather than waggling around.
Podcast title.
A couple other announcements for next year releases. This one is one that I don't think we were expecting. Chocobo GP will launch on Nintendo Switch next year. This is basically a kart racer in the universe of like Chocobo Dungeon, Chocobo Buddy, whatever you call those games. I don't know if there's like an overarching title for like that umbrella of games. So it's
Chocobo
the
series. I think
it's just
literally
called
what they call
Chocobo
it.
series. Yeah, it's like the little cartoony Chocobo chick that does the dungeon splunking. Is now in a kart racer. So
I'm sorry, Brian. His name is Alpha.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Slam.
This is a Final Fantasy 14 reference with Omega.
No, he literally has a name. Is it Alpha?
Yeah, I think it's Alpha. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Alpha.
Look at these people who's never played a Chocobo game. What the hell?
Hey, I played everybody, but the thing is, you get like his armor. It's like a different Chocobo.
Oh,
weird. Or his clothing.
The lore of the Chocobo series. I need to catch up. But yeah, it looks fun. It looks cute. They do some kind of clever things. Like some of the things that you race on are like rollerblades or like rocket boots instead of all being carts or bikes. So they also showed some like stages like Alexandria from Final Fantasy IX. They also showed characters like Vivi and Steiner. So I don't know. It just seems fun. Kart racers are probably like a good fit for Switch. So this seems smart. Gold Saucer is there.
I can't believe that we're not more like excited for this. I saw this and I was like, "Yep, game of the show. I love this. This looks great." And I'm not even
game of the show.
I guess it looks great. It looks so good.
I mean, I'm looking forward to it too, but I don't know if it's my game of the show.
Yeah, definitely not my game of the show. But I will say that if Nintendo's not going to give us a Mario Kart 9, fuck yeah, I'll play a Chocobo GP.
Let's do it.
I mean, yeah, I've played Chocobo Racing on PS1, so I guess I'm obligated to play it.
I didn't know that's a thing.
Yeah, there's a spiritual successor to that. Come on.
I do like how in the press. I do like how in the press release for like roster of beloved characters, players can choose from a wide selection of Chocobo series characters. And I'm like, I need more help than that. Please, like, throw me a bone. Who are some of these characters?
Yeah, you mentioned Vivi and Steiner, but you forgot about Shiroma.
Come on, dude. You don't remember Shiroma?
I actually don't.
That's from Chocobo's Mystery Dungeon. Everybody, dude. Come on. Everyone knows.
I'm sorry.
Shiroma.
So this is very interesting because between all of these Final Fantasy IX characters in Chocobo GP and the fact that the Actraiser remake / remaster was in the NVIDIA leak, that other game in the NVIDIA leak, the Final Fantasy IX remake thing, that seems more and more likely now.
About the FF Tactics remaster remake thing that they put in the list. I want that to be real. Please be real.
You're all the point that Chocobo Racer GP is real and it looks amazing. Like just let's do that. That's so good.
It's funny that they're gonna have like a tournament mode for this too that supports up to 64 players as well. It's like yes. I can't wait for Chocobo GP to just be the esport game for the Switch.
One thing I hope they do is they take a page from Mario Kart's book and they have like communities where you can just like put a code in and race in that specific community.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool.
Because it's like really nice because it's not, you don't have to coordinate anything. It's literally just, okay, we play this on weekends and it's like an informal tournament that way.
Mm-hmm.
That's always been great.
I do like how the reason why we can allow ourselves to talk about this, like RPG site on our podcast talking about a kart racer, just because it's the series that it's drawing, from the Chocobo series, published by Square Enix. So we should be extra thankful for Chocobo GP because now we can talk about our kart racer experience because we wouldn't have the opportunity.
We should review it.
Alex wouldn't say no. Yeah,
we review Final Fantasy spinoffs. I feel like we could make an argument to review Chocobo GP.
We reviewed Persona Dancing.
Not connected.
Yeah, I reviewed Persona Dancing. So let's get a crew of people together to review Chocobo GP.
Let's get a board.
I'll play it. Fuck it. I'm not above it. Who's the shithead character in this game? It's probably gonna be Moogle, huh?
It's definitely gonna be Gilgamesh.
Oh yeah, that's funny for the trailer. It's like, oh yeah, for the trailer narration is like, oh yeah, it's familiar Final Fantasy characters like Chocobo and Gilgamesh. It's like, all right.
By the way, George, Gilgamesh is originally from Final Fantasy V.
Is he in anything like?
He shows up in 12. He shows up in I think 13.
9. He's in 9.
Yeah, he's 9.
Would he be in
It was the Final Fantasy 9 version that was in the kart racer.
Was Gilgamesh? I think Gilgamesh was in 15 in some form.
I might know from.
Oh, he's in the Gladio. He's in the Gladio DLC.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Then I do know Gilgamesh.
Oh my gosh, George! I can't believe you have to be like, what most recent thing did Gilgamesh?
Gladio DLC.
I find it funny how I saw some people saying, "Who the hell is Gilgamesh?" And it's like, but he's like the one properly recurring like character in the entire series.
I'm turning into dust.
Another announcement that's coming out on Nintendo Switch next year in 2022 is the Shadowrun trilogy. So this is a series of 3 tactical RPGs that released in the mid-2010s. Shadowrun Returns, Shadowrun Dragonfall, and Shadowrun Hong Kong. So these take place in a cyberpunk universe. Shadowrun is kind of a wide-reaching IP that I've always been aware of, but I've never really experienced myself. I know that people have like really highly recommended these games, but also in the mid-2010s when these were releasing, that's also when like Divinity Original Sin and Pillars of Eternity and Torment Tides of Numenera were releasing. So I never made space for these games. And I guess these are more tactical based rather than truly RPG, even though I know that's kind of a foggy boundary. But I don't know. This seems kind of cool. I'm not sure if it's a good fit for Switch, but I don't know. That's what they're going with. So
I only played the first game on Super Nintendo. If that's anything to go off with.
Was it a strategy game or was it something different back then?
It was a strategy game, like RPG. Like from what I remember, the concept. I think he plays this guy named Jake. He gets murdered or he gets shot like many times. And
he plays a guy named Jake and he dies.
Yeah, and he wakes up in like this, like in a morgue, right? And he's like, "Oh my god, this guy is still alive!" And he's trying to find out who killed him. You know, he has amnesia, but he's trying to find out like who murdered him at the intro or something like that. That's why I remember. Like for a Super Nintendo game, I think this was like kind of unique and dark for its time. You know.
Yeah, whatever. My recollection of this recent Shadowrun trilogy was like people were lukewarm on Returns, but they liked the Dragonfall, and I'm not sure where people stand on Hong Kong, but people really like Dragonfall from what I remember.
So I guess, yeah, Shadowrun was a pen and paper RPG. So it's interesting that they went more tactical based when they went to these recent game adaptations rather than more Baldur's Gate-ish. So we already talked about like Planescape Torment and then all those other Beamdog games that showed up on Switch. So maybe they've seen that there is an audience for those. So why not Shadowrun? I think that covers it for what the stuff that was explicitly brought up in the Nintendo Direct. Was there anything like maybe not RPG related or something that we missed that anyone had as a takeaway of the presentation as a whole? We did not get Fire Emblem. We did not get Xenoblade in any form. Yeah.
Yeah, Bayonetta 3 finally showing up again was cool.
Chris Pratt's Mario.
I mean, yeah. I mean, all the other castings are like, okay, I get it. I mean, I don't know.
I love how everyone saw Jack Black as Bowser and was like, okay, I can see it.
Like Charlie Day's Luigi, yeah, okay. I do think it's really interesting. I was talking about this with Alex when we were watching it. Like that Cranky Kong is gonna be in the film because the lore of Cranky Kong was the original Donkey Kong, the one that threw barrels down at Mario at the original arcade games. So that's gonna be weird.
I'm pretty sure that there are some holes in that Donkey Kong lore. Like Donkey Kong as we know him is actually Donkey Kong Jr., but which is not the same as the current Donkey Kong Jr. or something. I don't know. It gets weird if you start to really
podcast title. There's some holes in the Donkey Kong lore.
I can't point them out right now, but I remember I tried like tracing it at one point, like who is Cranky Kong, who is Donkey Kong, who is the Ghost Kong in Donkey Kong 64.
Tracing it.
This is what
Ghost Kong is Cranky Kong's wife.
Oh, that's right.
Her name is like Grandma Kong.
The only one I care about is Funky Kong, if I'm going to be real.
Yeah, I'm going to look this up. DK64 Ghost
I don't know why
Kong.
this tickled me so much.
This is why we need a new Donkey Kong, Wrinkly Kong.
That's true.
Okay, what kind of name is like Cranky and Wrinkly?
Although,
Did they just adopt a new name when they got older or something?
I am sending myself at this first line on Wrinkly Kong's DK Wiki bio. Wrinkly Kong is the deceased wife of Cranky Kong, mother of Donkey Kong Jr., and grandmother of Donkey Kong III. Like, I didn't realize there was
Donkey Kong the Third.
Things I never think I never knew.
I guess Donkey Kong, the Donkey Kong in like Tropical Freeze is Donkey Kong the Third. What? According to
who are you casting for this Wrinkly Kong?
I'm just like, why would you? Wrinkly Kong can't have been like her name given at birth, right? So at some point she just started calling herself that. Same with Cranky.
My favorite thing about the Wrinkly Kong Donkey Kong fandom page is that it has two images of her, one for alive and one for deceased.
Oh no!
Jesus Christ. The lore runs deep. It's not just Chocobo, it's Donkey Kong.
It's okay. It's okay. She's a ghost. She's a ghost. She's okay.
It's sounding like you're really disappointed they didn't show any new Donkey Kong at that Direct then.
Apparently.
Where's the Wrinkly Kong game, Nintendo? What the fuck?
I love this tangent. Anyways, I don't even remember what we were talking about. Anyways,
I don't know.
Bayonetta. Great.
Yeah.
Sorry to have you have to share the stage with Donkey Kong lore.
If Wrinkly Kong doesn't show up Bayonetta 3, I'm gonna riot.
All right, some other news from this week that was not in the Nintendo Direct. So we'll go through some of these. I'll do a couple release dates first. I know Adam was wondering about this, and maybe some people listening. Neo, The World Ends With You. We did know that it was supposed to come to PC via the Epic Game Store at some point this summer. We have a release date. It will release on September 28th. Which
and as you know,
it's summer.
It's fall now. I'm sorry. Fucking blew it.
They lied.
I can't believe they lied to us. But yeah, so I will probably have I'm guessing we'll have you play it and talk about it on the podcast at some point. Because I know you were waiting for the PC version, so that's cool.
We can't let Square Enix keep getting away with this when they keep lying to us about release dates. Oh,
I'm imagining Adam sat there, the calendar, like looking at the thing. It's at the top. It says summer, and he just crossed the dates angrily, like they're lying.
It's easy for me because I know my birthday is always the first day of fall, so easy.
We have a release date for Swery's The Good Life. Will be releasing on October 15th. So this is a game that I feel like we've covered a lot because it's been like in development a good while, and every 6 months or so we get a new little snippet of information on it. But it finally has a release date. It will be releasing for PC, PS4, Xbox One, and Switch. I actually don't know much. Like, do we have plans to cover this game? Obviously, you wrote the news stories about
Cullen wants to do it.
I thought Cullen wants to do it.
I mean, it depends on schedule. It depends on schedule. There's a lot of games and
we've listed out a lot of October dates. Yeah.
I feel bad because I was hoping to do Caligula 2, but then I never got around to doing Overdose. So as of right now, I don't know who's covering that.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, that's only like 3 weeks away, less than that. We have a official website for Tales of Luminaria, and the pre-registration is now open. We have some of the cast behind the game, some of the character design artists, and the scenario writers. I don't know if you're the one that's most interested in this entry in the Tales series, Josh.
I mean, yeah, it catches my eye, even though it's yet another Tales mobile game. So this will be the fifth one, like in.
I'll be honest, they're like they're really blending together for me.
It's like there's like Tales of Link, Tales of Asteria, Tales of the Rays, Tales of Crestoria, and now this game, I think.
They just trying to kill off Crestoria so they can focus on this new game.
So this one's a weird one because this game is pitched as like it's like pitched like a mothership title where it'll have an all new cast. They're making sure that there's no crossovers, there's no past Tales characters coming into this one. It's an all they're saying they'll still have 21 main characters. That's kind of their big pitch of it, because like there's this whole over like the way they're presenting the story is like through episodes, so you'll be shifting perspectives quite regularly in this game, and they're trying to craft the whole story around it from different perspectives. They're already teasing out like weird story details of like these two main characters, and this is not a spoiler because they showed it in the official broadcast. They're like in episode like 1, like it shows these two main characters being friends in like this academy, and like in episode or act 10 or whatever, like one of them betrays the other and whatnot. It's like, what? It's like, I guess. So yeah, the development of this game is done by Colopal. A lot of Western people won't know who they are. They're the ones behind Shironeko Project in Japan. It's a very successful mobile game over there. The character design is done by Shun Saeki, who's done Food Wars, Shokugeki no Soma. And a lot of people will like the main composer. That's Go Shina is back for this game. And the gameplay that they showed is it's not like Crestoria where they went the turn-based angle for this. It's more like your standard Tales game. It's like action, but it's seamless. Don't take this the wrong way. I know a lot of people are gonna like get panicked, but it's gonna be like seamless battles like Zestiria, where you just run into an enemy and then the battle interface will like just show up. It won't like transition to like an arena. The interesting thing about this is like they showed in the teaser trailer, this is all going to be done in a portrait mode, which is like your phone is standing up. It's not going to be you don't have to turn your phone sideways, landscape mode to play this. And like
that's cool.
And there's like weird like character quirks like gameplay wise. Like one of the main characters is like this female archer, and like one of like the gameplay segments shows her like hiding behind foliage, sort of like a cover shooter, like Gears of War style. So she's like aiming her shots from like foliage, like as she's approaching enemies, from like moving from like one cover to the next, approaching them and whatnot. So and then like one of the other characters shows that like he's sort of like I don't know if he's a vampire, but he looks like one. Like he has like a blink ability in battle as he's moving around. So they're really going for like trying to make these characters like play different or have their own quirks. Since the characters are going to be like obtainable like as you're going through the story and the content of the game, there's still going to be a gacha system in this game. We don't know how it's gonna manifest, but they've already shown like in the trailers like it'll have in-game app purchases and whatnot. So what I think like the gacha system is going to be in this game is going to be like either equipment and or like art. So like, you know, if you want to get special attacks, you might have to roll for them. I don't know, but I've definitely seen other games like Super Robot Wars DD. You do that where you have to like kind of gacha for like additional attacks, which is scummy and feels bad. But hopefully, you know, we'll see how this game handles it. Let's see. They showed off a really cool trailer for this game that has like a really awesome bop from Frederick and Keinis Suda. The theme song is called Answer. It's I at the very least, like, you know, I still have a lot of questions about this game, but like what they showed off doesn't really deter me right away. And at the very least, people should at least watch the trailer for like to hear that song. It's a really, really cool, catchy song. I really like it. But Funimation has been kind of showing the English cast for this game, because one of the big things about this game is going to be released worldwide simultaneously, and it's going to be both in Japanese and English. So it's trying to be a worldwide first Tales game on mobile. So let's see how that goes.
It's also getting an anime adaptation through Funimation for the dub, and it has a lot of English voice actors that I actually think are quite good, like Jason Lee Bright, Monica Rial, Clifford Chapin,
Christina V. Yeah,
Jeremy Lay.
She's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no Bryce Papenbrook anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna try it out for sure. It's also like, I wonder how much space this is gonna take up on your phone as well, because it's like full 3D environments that you're aiming around on with seamless battles and like a fully voiced story both in Japanese and English. So I don't know how much space that's gonna take on the phone. And like the way they're like saying, it's like it seems to be an ambitious title. So
I do like though that I can spot some of the enemies that are in the trailer, and they look pulled out of Zilla or something. Like Adam, there's a bunch of those wiggle enemies, like bun wiggles and otter wiggles.
Yes, I like the wiggles.
They're so all over. They're actually like honestly all over the place in this trailer. So
they showed off just a basic like, hey, these are characters. There's like factions in the game, and like these are the factions these characters belong to. So they kind of released like the basics on the story and the world on that front. And I kind of feel bad for this game a little, because this game is clearly like a sort of passion project from like its creators, but it's so bogged down by the context of its release, especially in the West. Of like, there's so many other Tales mobile games already, and like, and the history of Tales mobile games in the West is a shoddy one, especially with like the premature takedown of Tales of the Rays years and years ago. Like, a lot of people, like, that's still doing very well in Japan, and a lot of people wanted that to live in the West, but it just didn't happen for whatever reason. And yeah, I want to see where hopefully this is a good game. I want this to be a good game. I don't want it to be like a Historia situation where it looked promising, but I like the story of Historia, but like a lot of its game systems were just, it was just too much. It was too cumbersome. Like even like, for example, in Historia, there's like this raid system where you take on this boss through asynchronous co-op, like kind of people just get in their hits and whatnot, but game logic was tied to frame rate, so like phones that couldn't run the game well wouldn't be able to do as much damage because they ran the game poorly. That's kind of like a lot of where the game faltered, was like just poor performance on like phones, for phones that couldn't support it, along with like this cumbersome organizational content.
Well, also, I mentioned on a previous podcast that I just, for whatever reason, if it's a crossover, I just immediately am less interested in it. So I actually do kind of like that Luminaria is 100% original.
Yeah. So yeah, the Adam put up the page, along with like full artwork of all the characters. They all have varying levels of like, they're just all over the place when it comes to like outfits. There's like no like,
it kind of doesn't feel all too cohesive, even though it's all the same artist. So it's like some of the designs I think are really cool. Some of them are just like, oh, for sure. Okay.
Yeah, and others are just like, whoa, it's definitely out there, all right. But we'll see. I'll give it a chance.
We also have a release date announcement for consoles for Record of Lodoss War, Deedlit, and Wonder Labyrinth. So this is a game that was on Steam Early Access for a long time, and then came out of Early Access earlier this year in March. And we actually did write a review up on it. And yeah, I think James even did a video review for this one. But now it will also launch on December 16th for PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Xbox Series, and Nintendo Switch. So now that the full game is available on PC, they're just porting it over to consoles. Seems smart. I know James thought it was a good game, though it didn't, like, maybe not great. I don't know, maybe James, you can just kind of really briefly go over like what you thought about Deedlit and Wonder Labyrinth and whether you're excited for a console port.
I'm not going to play it on console because I have no reason to. It's decent. It's pretty short, though. It's a Metroidvania. They're never really that long unless it's like Hollow Knight, in which case it might be a bit too long.
Yeah, kind of its own thing.
The main problem with it is that as far as Team Ladybug's games go, it feels like it makes the least out of its like main conceit of like the bow and the Ikaruga style like element shifting. Like if you look at something like Luna Knights and you see how much they get out of the time manipulation stuff, it's like really interesting. And throughout the entire game, there's like new stuff being added, new takes on it. you don't really get that with everything that Deedlit gives you, and there's like a ton of boss fights that are reused several times. It's funny because I saw some people in my review like kind of shitting on me for saying that it's probably the worst Team Ladybug game, and I still gave it a 7 out of 10. It's still a good game. It's just like if you play it in the context of like the other stuff they've released, it's kind of hard to ignore that it's definitely not as deep or as fully fleshed out as some of their other games.
Yeah, but obviously it'll come over to console, and obviously maybe we'll have some other people play on it to see we get a different perspective. But I mean, of course, if you played Toho Luna Nights and you really enjoyed that one and think this one fell short, you're totally free to say that.
I think there is something cool about at least a wide scale record of Lodoss War video game.
Yeah, that is kind of
releasing in the year 2021 and now for like all systems, and like regardless of like whether like the game was better or worse than like the past games as a developer. There's something called like record of Lodoss War is like somewhat relevant again. That's a classic franchise from way back when. Holy crap.
We also got a new trailer for Super Robot Wars 30. So it's kind of interesting. It's like Super Robot Wars 30's second trailer, but it's like 7 minutes long. So I have not dug through this trailer, and even if I did, I am not aware of all the series that it's like referencing or whether these are original characters. So I don't know like what you gleaned out of this trailer, Josh, that you thought was really exciting.
So it's interesting for this one because the like Super Robot Wars marketing, like fans of the series have expectations for like even its trailers because the trailers are doled out like in very formulaically. Like usually like in the second trailer, that's when they would announce the original characters, but that was already announced in the debut announcement trailer for this game. So the game's producer and series producer Terada mentioned up front that like this is going to be a shorter trailer, even though it's like 7 minutes long. There's gonna be a shorter trailer because we have a third trailer coming up before the game's release. So they showed off more attacks from the current series, like Victory Gundam, J-Decker, Gridman, and whatnot. Gridman got a really cool transformation to Max Gridman in this trailer, and Combattler V got like the final attack in this trailer, which looked really nice. But for fans who wanted like a meteor trailer, like they'll have to wait for the third trailer because this was kind of split up for whatever reason. The main things that people got excited about was the Silver Bullet suppressor from the Gundam narrative movie showed up, and a lot of people liked that because that's piloted by the Unicorn's protagonist Banniger Lynx. So he shows up in this trailer, kind of confirming that yes, he's gonna have his unit from narrative here. The big announcement for Mecha Nerds in this game was they're gonna in the Final Code Geass movie, Lelouch the Resurrection. In that film, Lelouch and his partner C2, they pilot this incomplete mech called like the Gecko or the Gecko Kui or whatever, and in the Gecko, sorry, but that was like sort of like an incomplete mech that didn't have like stick of like the Zeong from the original Gundam show. And in this game, they're actually going to complete it like for the first time. It was shown in the design documents for that movie, but it was never like completed in the film. So for in Super Robot Wars 30, they're actually gonna like give it legs and have it like a color scheme that Lelouch would like, and they're gonna call it the Gecko Sui, and that's a sort of a homage to like the Perfect Zeong in the Gundam universe, where there was a thing called the Perfect Zeong, where the Zeong actually got legs as well. So that's kind of like the big announcement for this new trailer, which is cool. They showed off, more attacks from their participating series. They also showed off some of the upgrade systems that you'll be interfacing with the game, like in the main battleship in the game. Like in this game, you'll be able to upgrade like each facility in this game, like the hangar, the bridge, the engine room, the lab, and whatnot, and that'll somehow affect like subsidiary systems in the game as well. They didn't go too much into like what it would affect specifically, but that's like kind of I wonder if this is like a new thing that'll have in the game. Like, I'm not sure what to make of it yet. Obviously, it'll be upgrading the battleship ship's capabilities in combat. But like stuff like, hey, you can like upgrade the cafeteria. What the hell does that mean? You can upgrade the entertainment room. What the hell does that mean? What does that mean? What will that affect? Will that like unlock new crossover like events? If it's like level 2 or whatever, who knows? But yeah, they said that the next trailer for it, the final trailer, is going to be released sometime next month in October before the game's release on the October 28th. And they were really cheeky about this too, because in the Japanese Nintendo Direct broadcast, they showed largely the same scenes that was showed up in this trailer, but then they had a new scene that was probably, assumably, going to be in the new trailer. There was like a one thing. It was like the L Guy Mark II, like firing a beam rifle, just like for a few, like 2 seconds, 2-second clip, snuck into that Japanese Nintendo Direct trailer. It's like, you motherfuckers, what do you have in store for us in this final trailer? So people are getting excited about that, and yeah, this game is shaping up to hopefully be really, really cool. I'm really excited for it, and I'm kind of doing my not my catch up, but like my usually when Super Robot Wars games get announced and they show the series list, there'll be like some shows that I want to rewatch because like it's been so long, or I want to get into. Like for this one, I started reading the Knights End Magic manga, and I'm like caught up with that now. So like I'm pretty excited to see how, which units, how units are going to be represented in this game, and what sort of crossover interactions they're going to have with that cast with other series. I'm starting my rewatch of Majestic Prince. I really like that show. That's like a 2014 anime show. And I never watched Elgaim. Elgaim is by Tomino, obviously the creator of Gundam.
I've seen the original. It's actually pretty good.
Yeah, people are saying it's a pretty cool show. So, but I never got around to Elgaim, so I really want to, get into that before 30 releases. And that's a somewhat pretty long show too. So I got to get on that soon. But
I think this is the second time it appeared in the Super Robot War game. I think it was in the GameCube Super Robot War game that they appeared in.
It has showed up much. I want to say like maybe once or twice. Like I'm trying to remember. Like was it at Impact? I forgot. It's been so long since we've seen Elgaim in SRW. So it's really cool to see it here again. And it's also just a wake up call for it's like, hey, go check out this show. So that's probably one of my most anticipated games next month for sure. And
been releasing worldwide on Steam, in case you forgot.
Yep. And I'm really excited to see how it's going to do worldwide. Man, that still doesn't feel real.
A couple other tiny little footnotes at the end here. We did get a recruitment page for Dragon Quest XII, The Flames of Fate. This is the Dragon Quest title that was announced just with the logo pretty much back in May. And we saw this listing for positions from Orca. Orca previously co-developed on Dragon Quest XI, so it's really no surprise to see them on 12. So they've got listings for like character artists, animators, rigging artists, level designers. Not too much to chew on here. Just shows that A, Orca's working on Dragon Quest again, and B, it'll probably be a long time before we see more of Dragon Quest 12.
Oh yeah. Who's gonna? Why don't you should apply? So someone save the level design. Come on, show me some good dungeons.
I was seeing like if there was like a battle planner or whatever, because I forget the exact way he worded it, but he said he had a statement like we're rethinking the command system, which people started to say like, oh, it's gonna be an action game or whatever. But
yeah, I guess maybe that's like the thing that they have like sort of concrete down of like pre like production and pre-development of this game. It's like they just know like we want to take the battle direction elsewhere, but everything else is like, all right, you have to make a game around this too, apparently.
Yeah, so and it does kind of really seem based on the logo that it's like Dragon Quest for adults or something, but maybe that's just reading too much into it, but probably be a long time before we see more.
I want to see what an Unreal Engine 5 RPG looks like, and to have Dragon Quest be the one that helms that. Like that's I don't know what to make of it. It feels so ambitious.
So a couple months ago, we kind of allowed ourselves to get excited for this kind of this tease from Atlas that for the Persona 25th anniversary, they had a nice website for the anniversary, and they teased like 7 new Persona related projects. And I think it was Adam at the time who was trying to like say like simmer down, like we probably have a couple like art things or collaborations or, you know, maybe a concert.
No, you understand. They're going to announce Persona 6, 7, 8, and 9, and 10.
Well, I remember people were looking at like the artwork of the protagonist, and there was like a blank spot. And it's like, oh, that's going to be it, and maybe that'll still turn into something. But we got the first.
No, those already got spoiled and leaked. They're not.
Oh, they did. Okay.
What?
Yeah.
One of them is Igor.
Yep.
And one of them is just like a compilation of all 5 of the other protagonists. So
they knew what they were doing.
They do know what they're doing.
No, that's actually really common in Japan. Like when it comes to Japanese marketing, where like you don't ever show like the whole hand because you want people to buy into these blind boxes and find out for themselves what they are. Like it's not. This is typical marketing Japan. Just people in the West who don't live in Japan, like this is completely foreign to them, so they have their expectations skyrocketing through the roof. But this is a very common. That's a very common tactic, I'll agree, like marketing tactic in Japan.
Anyways, the announcements that we've had so far are kind of what Adam sort of told us they might be. So there's an orchestral concert on November 21st at the Tokyo Opera City Hall. Lynn, who is a artist, will be doing a mini concert at Tokyo Game Show in a week. All the previous Persona anime are going to be made available streaming in Japan on a single service. I think
including Trinity Soul.
Hell yeah! Finally. I you know what? I've been redeemed. Finally, Trinity Soul stands can finally rise up and be like, "We're back, baby."
No.
Did you ever get the HD version of the creditless opening?
No,
or whatever?
No, I'm still trying to find it. That's like the final boss of like my whole entire project.
And you probably have to actually get like the disc version to get that. Not like the Netflix or Amazon thing probably won't have it.
No, that maybe. I probably not. Sometimes they do. It's a weird case. Sometimes they do, but like the only place I know that has it is the now delisted way discontinued like collector's editions from Nice America when they released it way back when. I think those
remember when they did anime? That was weird.
Yeah, that was weird. But yeah, so long story short, hopefully this means that all these previous anime Persona anime will get like come westward or like into streaming services, because I know like some of the Persona 3 movies are still like unavailable in the West in some streaming services.
If I remember correctly, it's like on Netflix you can watch the second Persona 3 movie and that's it. Like,
yeah.
It's like you can watch the middle part. Like, oh, okay,
cool.
Sure. Like that's definitely the best part to choose if you're only pick one. Is the middle one. Okay.
Yeah, but hey,
one other footnote for this is that we did get an English-facing site for the 25th anniversary, which is a lot less like coy or a lot less teasing, where they basically say more announcements to come, 2021, 2022, with one question mark. Basically they say, and then there's some language here where they basically say, the 25th anniversary, there'll be merchandise, events, collaborations, and even game information. So they stick away from announcements. They just say, well,
that's
actually, no. In this little blurb, they say game information, but at the bottom they do say more announcements to come. But it just seems like they're being a little bit more like simmer down, but they don't have like the whole like 7 earmarked things for it.
I mean, yeah. It seems like they're trying to at least somewhat manage expectations, because like the news of the concert and Lynn showing up at TGS and like the Persona anime streaming in Japanese streaming services, like that's all stuff that pertains to Japan. Like that's their first info blowout. For the Western, it's like, here's these digital wallpapers of like the previous Persona protagonists. It's like cool. You know what would be a cool announcement if they announced that the Persona 3 movies and Trinity Soul would be on Western platforms or Western streaming platforms. That would have been cool, Or
I'm all for like 25th, not even specifically 25th anniversary, but like anniversary things just being about celebrating something rather than being, oh, it's Kingdom Hearts 20th anniversary next year, so they have to announce 4. Like I'd like it to just be a celebration, but I feel like Persona fans, like they always do think it's going to be something big. Like every single time anything Persona or Atlas related comes up, it's like, Persona 6.
Well,
Persona 5 on Switch.
When Atlas presents it the way they did, where they said, "Here's 7 announcements coming up," and there's going to be starting in September, and then they did like the artwork the way they did. So I can't completely they did kind of
they kind of do it to themselves, to be honest. Like Atlas, just all overall, they kind of get off on tantalizing their fans like that. It kind of sucks,
Jesus.
but hey, that's what it is, dude. That's exactly what it is. So I mean, that they just they really want to build excitement and hype, no matter the cost. They just want excitement.
But they could literally just tomorrow they could be like, "Oh, Persona 6 exists."
Dude, it's the same fucking way Nomura words things very weirdly and vaguely, and people will hang on every word Nomura says in an interview. It's like, oh, that means
I don't do that.
Yeah, of course.
Been going on.
I think it makes sense that the Persona Japanese site lists 7 announcements. If you expected all 7 to be a new game, 7 new games, I think you're
crazy.
I don't know what do you really expect them to be 7 new games? So I think the fact that that there's going to be a concert, there's probably going to be one of them is going to be a royal anime or whatever. But I think it makes sense that the first announcement before Shin Megami Tensei 5 comes out would not be another game to distract from Shin Megami Tensei 5, because they want people to buy that, and then maybe after that's out, they'll be like, all right, now that you've all bought Shin Megami Tensei 5, right? Here's the next thing, and there's the next announcement's in December.
Yeah.
So
they're trying to make space for SMT5. People should be more thankful that at least these 3 announcements, for Japan, were all bundled up in one little slot instead of three different slots having. Hey, this first slot is the Persona animation. The second slot in December is going to be the orchestral concert or whatever.
Yeah, that's true. I think in my head, as soon as I think of Persona announcements, this is beating a dead horse with a stick, but Persona 4 on consoles, maybe Persona 5 on Switch. There's obvious ones, that they could do.
Ports are a really I get it, but I'd want to be bundled up in a single announcement either. I don't want them to be here's 5 these 5 different slots are just Persona 4 Golden to Switch, the next slot Persona 4 Golden to PS4, the next slot I don't know, Persona 5 to Switch or whatever. I don't know what to expect, and maybe the best thing to go into is to have no expectations, always, because it's fucking Atlas and announcements. When you bundle Atlas and announcement together, your expectations should always be 0.
The final thing that I have on our podcast itinerary is that Bandai Namco US did recently announce that they're going to have a Bandai Namco Entertainment America Live show, not next Saturday, but the Saturday after. So it'll be a few weeks before we can talk about it here.
It's at New York Comic Con.
Oh yeah, so I guess that means New York Comic Con is going on.
Yep,
cool. Well, I guess PAX West went on, so I guess we're kind of back in that phase now. Even though I know that PAX was kind of very, very different feeling from the people that I've talked to that have gone there. So I assume this will be a similar. But so maybe we'll see more about Digimon Survive, or I don't know if there's anything else.
The fact that it's from the Western side. It's I know a lot of times these things are worldwide now, and you can get Japanese announcements from the Western branches, but it's just I'm not sure if this would be where we would see Digimon.
I would just assume that this is where we see another look at the dark films, whatever thing they did at E3, and
oh god,
and whatever Bandai Namco things are coming up soon, maybe you see they'll probably mention oh yeah, SRW 30 is it exists and will finally be released here.
Fun fact, Man of Medan, the first start pictures, was the first big thing I reviewed for RPG Site, and at the time I was quite positive on it, and then they did the second one and they did the exact same twist where I was I said it in the review, I think I was once you've found out the twist, it's hard to go back to, but it's an interesting first one, and then the second one they do a similar thing where it's okay, once you find out the twist, it ruins the whole thing going back again. So I've just got to the point where if they do it a third time, I'll just complain about it.
You'll never play another Bandai Namco game again?
Yeah, unless they do Dragon Ball or Naruto or any of the other things I like.
Dragon Ball or Naruto or any of the other things I like. If they do anime that I like,
that's a very thorough boycott. I will boycott it as long as it's something I'm disinterested in.
That's pretty good. Remind you of that fucking Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 boycott meme. Pretty good.
I was reading some of the responses to the announcement of this Bandai Namco showing in a few weeks, and I forgot that people are saying Elden Ring because, like I said, I would always.
Oh yeah, I guess that's true.
That is published by them, so like, all right.
There's no fucking way they're going to show it there, though.
And Elden Ring is definitely one of those. Elden Ring is obviously a Japanese game, but almost all of the media for it has come from like an English event.
Well, the big blowout for it was from Jeff Keighley's thing. So
yeah, exactly. So
maybe.
Will Jeff Keighley be there? That's only maybe know if Elden Ring's going to be there.
But yeah, that covers it for this episode of the Tetracast. Very news heavy, but I guess that always happens when we have a Nintendo Direct kind of, surprise us, and then it happens a day later, and then we talk about it a day later. So, and lots of RPG news to talk about that came out of it, and then the other news that came alongside that from the rest of the week. And then maybe by next week, some of the games that we've been playing that have been under NDA or we just can't talk about yet, we'll be able to chat about. I personally have not been able to play much because I'm in the middle of moving. So I'm very glad that you guys are able to talk up all the games that you've been playing, because I feel like I'm going to be playing Pathfinder until the sun burns out at the rate I'm going.
All right, George, we're going to have to talk about Deathloop next week.
Yes.
By the time,
it's great.
Look, just let us know when you're able to play games, so all of us stop playing games, and you have to carry the.
Damn. I don't want that
episode. We'll just get to the point where it'll be Brian and I talking about our continued escapades in Final Fantasy XI again.
At some point.
No, I cut that off with Final Fantasy 14.
I get by this time next week. We'll just be in the middle of TGS, so like a lot of our whatever comes out of TGS or first news of TGS was probably going to be here next week. So
yep.
That's a thing, when there's no games to talk about that we're playing, eventually there's a big announcement of all these games.
Yeah, funny how that works.
Well, it's cool that we got the chance this week to talk about games like Kena and Metroid. So we'll do that for as long as we need to. But thanks for listening. You can read anything that we've talked about, all the announcements from the Nintendo Direct up at rpgsite.net. The features that we talked about regarding Hajimari no Kiseki and Dragon Ball Z Kakarot on Switch are up on the site as well. If you go to the site, there's an icon at the top that you can click to go to our Discord channel to talk about any of the recent releases like Tales of Arise or anything else you're currently playing. We do also have presence on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram and YouTube. So RPG site, you should be able to find us there pretty easily. And we will be back next week with hopefully some first news from Tokyo Game Show. I think that time's out, right? Because the game show starts on the 30th, and that we'll be recording on the 2nd. So it won't be over, but we might have some initial stuff to talk about. So look forward to that.
Depending on time zones, it might be over. I'm not actually sure.
Yeah, we'll have to double check. But
it's early on, so it'll definitely have news to talk about.
But until you hear from us next week, stay safe, take care. We'll talk to you next time.
Wrigley Kong and Trinity Soul back in 2021. Woo!
No.